They used his power, drained his magic, then called him useless, and cast him out. But now, the weakest link has awakened something terrifying. With a cute fairy assistant and a new system to collect the magic he once gave, he's not just taking it back. He's growing stronger with every debt repaid. And beneath that calm smile, sleeps a wrath the world isn't ready for. Can the forgotten support become the final reckoning? Let's find out. The gift bestowed upon the protagonist by God is to be neither a warrior nor a sorcerer, nor even a healer. His skill is borrowed magic. In a fight with a goblin, a mage girl shouted, "Hurry up!" The knight waited for an attack and said for them to attack. After using all their magic power, they used an explosive strike. The goblin exploded like a balloon. A senior healer named El said that Guy is the best. The senior warrior, Guy, smiled triumphantly. Misa, the senior mage, said that it looks like it will be easy to win this time. The protagonist, with a piggy bank, sat on the ground and said that it was cool. They won with just one blow. He suggested that his friends continue on their way. His profession is called the Keeper of Magic. 5 years ago. Alt Village. Guy holds a piece of paper in his hand that says his profession is a swordsman. One of the guys said that this is great. He is already a D-rank adventurer. Guy replied that he always wanted to be an adventurer and he got what he deserved. His friend showed his sheet and said that his profession was a blacksmith and he was an E rank. Guy said that was not bad either. He would fight with the weapon he forged. The boy replied that he also wants to go on an adventure. In this world, when children turn 15, they receive a gift from God in a special coming-of-age ceremony. The main character also wanted to become an adventurer. Someone called out to the main character named Rent. He turned his head and saw his friend, Misa. She informed him that his name had been called. He entered the temple and walked along the path along the benches. People in white outfits stood along the path and waved tree branches. Rent thought that the surroundings were unusual. The Holy Father greeted Rent. He said that the protagonist took this parchment and prayed in the light of the altar. Then the Creator will reveal the secret of all future life. Rent knelt down in front of the altar and the sunlight illuminated him. He walked out of the temple to the guys in the yard. Misa was surprised that it was already over. Guy asked how it went. Rent handed over the parchment and said that even the Holy Father was surprised by this. It looks like he has an S rank. The guys fell silent. Everyone surrounded the protagonist and did not believe what was written. Someone said that this is a rare case. Guy held the parchment in his hands and read it out loud. The Guardian? He did not believe that Rent's magic was equal to 1,200 units. The child said that this couldn't be because he only had 20. Another girl said that she has 13. Guy asked how much power Rent has. The protagonist replied that we will see now. He was listed as having the ability to borrow magic power. Someone asked, borrow? Rent said it was a skill to transfer magic power to others. He could borrow magic power and use it as much as he wanted. Misa said that was great. She thought it was a great gift and a high S rank. Guy asked if she really thought so. Misa said that she congratulated Rent. The protagonist thanked her. He said that, to be honest, borrowing from a magic keeper was just one of the skills. Basically, it was the ability to store a little more magic power. In general, it was a general term for the energy expended when using a skill. The expended magic power is automatically restored during rest and sleep. There is a limit to the amount of magic power that can be stored. It can never be restored beyond this limit, but he can store the excess in the magic storage. Its capacity is equal to the maximum magic power of the keeper. In total, that's 2,400 units. Rent lay on the bed and wondered if he would ever be able to use these skills. He was not taught how to do this. They say that in magic, the main thing is the image of the repository. He turned his head to the side and saw an old piggy bank. He took it and thought that he would store magic, like coins in it. He realized that the repository can be perceived as a piggy bank, but not for coppers, but for magic. He will store magic in it. In the morning, somewhere in the forest, on a lonely stump there is a plate with a candle and someone used a fireball. Rent offered to borrow magic. Misa was surprised. She said that her powers were returning. Misa asked what she needed to do to get her magic back. Rent answered that she needed to put her hand on the piggy bank and direct the flow of power inside. Misa did so. The piggy bank lit up. Guy came up and asked what it was. A piggy bank? Rent answered that it was obvious. This was the best image of the repository that he could come up with. Misa asked Rent if he wanted to go on an adventure with them. They wanted to register the squad in the guild tomorrow. She, Rent, and Guy. And then, maybe they will find someone else. Misa is a D-rank mage, Guy is a D-rank swordsman, and Rent is an S-rank magic guardian. The protagonist was surprised that he was invited. Guy hugged him and said that there was no problem. Now they will not have problems with magic? Rent answered that you cannot use all the magic you want. If you borrow magic, you must return it. Misa said that Rent always said that he wanted to live a life full of adventures. The protagonist agreed. He asked if they had chosen a name for the squad. Guy said that of course. He raised his sword up and proudly said, "The sword of the boundless sky." Over time, this name will turn into a sword that cuts through the sky. Misa closed her eyes and said to Guy, "Why doesn't he change his mind?" Rent said that it was cool. Misa thought, boys will be boys. And L, a healer, appeared in the squad. And so their adventure began. They worked at breakneck speed. MC gifted everyone with magic power. Monsters died one after another, thanks to teamwork. And also, the total amount of magic power they possessed depended on the total sum of units of those in the party. Somewhere in a bar, one of the customers asked another if he had heard of the Sword of the Limitless Sky. The second customer said yes. They went from the initial F rank to rank C in just 2 years. The first customer said that the party was very fast. A random customer overheard this conversation and thought, Sword of the Limitless Sky? Time passed. Now Guy is a mid-level swordsman, adventurer rank C. Misa is a mid-level mage, adventurer rank C. L is a mid-level healer, adventurer rank C. Guy said that since they raised the party rank, it's time to buy new equipment. Misa said that it is easy to move in. Elle said that she likes it too. Rent asked what about his equipment. He was still in his basic equipment. Guy remained silent, and then replied that Rent didn't need to, since he wasn't fighting on the front lines. Elle said that it would be a good idea to wash his clothes. They smelled a bit sour. At that time, Rent was a Magic Guardian S, adventurer rank E. The protagonist thought that, compared to those three, his level rose much more slowly, because his skill had special conditions. The one who borrowed magic power must return it. But in his case, it was not quite so. The guys from the squad were in no hurry to return it, and the protagonist could not tell them about it directly. Then, when they were equal, they communicated freely and without problems. But now everything has changed. When you grow up, you begin to look at things differently, and at your past beliefs too. Present time. During the battle, Guy stands in front, Misa is slightly behind, and Elle is behind. She slammed her staff on the ground and said, "Magic boost." Then Misa used Fire Tornado on the goblin. Guy used Vacuum Scythe, and now the defeated goblin lies on the ground. After this battle, Guy became a Senior Warrior B rank, MP 1000. Elle Senior Healer B rank, MP 1200. Misa Senior Mage B rank, MP 1400. The protagonist was happy. Rent Guardian of Magic S rank, MP 50 out of 1210, Storage 50 out of 1210. Guy suggested going home and reporting to the guild. Elle said she was looking forward to her evaluation. Misa asked her friends if they had heard that their squad was the closest in the party to rank A. Guy answered naturally. Rent walked behind the rest of the squad, and turning his head to the side, he noticed a chest lying in the ruins. Rent shouted to the guys about his treasure find. The squad was surprised. Late evening, heavy rain, an inn. An adventurer squad was sitting at a round table by candlelight. Guy shouted for the protagonist not to make him repeat himself. Their squad had to climb to the very top. They wanted to recruit new adventurers and form squad number 2. And the protagonist was expelled from the squad, but Rent could not understand why. The three showed identical bracelets on their hands. Rent was surprised. After all, these bracelets were in the chest he found. Guy said that he appraised the bracelets in the shop, and the owner was very surprised that they were very rare items. The bracelet restores the owner's magic power, up to 1,000 units per day. And there were 3 bracelets, more than Rent could give them. Misa said they needed magic, but the protagonist didn't have to do it. Rent said if that was the case, could he still stay? Him and the 3 bracelets together, that would be more than 5,000 units. Elle said they could use any magic they wanted, right? Guy grabbed Rent by the throat and said he would test him. The protagonist had to try to get out. Rent hung helplessly in the air, choking from suffocation. Guy sternly told Rent not to act smart because he didn't have much magic. Rent's face was scared. Tears were streaming from his eyes, drool was dripping from his mouth, and his face had changed color. The protagonist barely whispered that it hurt. He almost choked when Guy loosened his grip. Rent fell to the floor. Elle laughed out loud, and Misa said that he had a funny face. MC was sitting on the floor and trying to come to his senses. Misa couldn't understand what kind of look he had. She completely agreed with Guy's words. Did the protagonist really want her to feel sorry for him? Rent jumped up from the floor and quickly left the room. He practically ran away from his friends. Elle shouted goodbye after him. Guy said that finally there was one less problem. Misa replied that this incompetent guy should have been kicked out much earlier. They laughed loudly at this situation. Rent walked at night in the pouring rain. He remembered what Guy did and clenched his fists in anger. He was angry that he couldn't do anything. The power granted to him was a real discovery for everyone. It was a unique gift. He could just stand behind his comrades and hand out magical power. He took off his piggy bank in the form of a pig and threw it on the ground. Rent thought that he never wanted this, but his friends said he was incompetent and kicked him out. If that was really the case, then at least they should give him back all the magic he gave them. Rent shouted loudly across the street, "Let them give it back." Suddenly, he heard a voice that said that he had fulfilled the requirements for the evolution of the gift. Rent didn't understand what was happening. His storage had evolved into an infinite storage of magic. Rent didn't understand what the voice was. The protagonist looked closely and noticed a small fairy with wings. She said that she congratulated the master on the evolution of the gift. She was really looking forward to meeting him. It was a wonderful moment. She didn't expect to have to wait 5 years since he came of age. Rent pointed his finger at her and said that she was the fairy of the gift. The fairy answered, absolutely right. He remembered the words of the village priest, who said that there was a fairy who supported the owner of a unique gift. He was glad that this story was true. The fairy said it was nice to meet you. She said her name was Magic Assistant, but he could call her Moppy. She was looking forward to getting to know him better. MC thought she was cute, but didn't know what he was supposed to say. The fairy wondered where Rent got his worn-out equipment from. An iron breastplate, a shabby cloth cloak, cloth pants, and terrible sandals? The fairy took out an abacus and counted something. She showed 116 coins on the abacus. That's how much you need to spend on normal equipment. Rent asked about his gift evolving. Moppy agreed. She said it was time to check the parchment. When a gift evolves, the contents of the parchment are also updated. On the parchment was written, Rent, Infinite Magic Storage SSS rank, MP 776 out of 1210, Storage, 50 out of Infinity, Adventurer rank E, no party. Rent was very surprised when he read the changes. He noticed that the name of the gift had changed. He thought that Guy and the others' gifts changed in battle. Guy was just a swordsman, but became an advanced swordsman. Rent asked the fairy, is there anything higher than S rank? Moppy laughed and told him to look at the parchment. She pointed her finger at the symbol and said it was infinity. She held his piggy bank and said that from now on there was no need to worry about the storage capacity. Now you can store an infinite amount of magic. Rent couldn't believe his eyes. The fairy looked at the piggy bank and thought it was just adorable. Rent asked again, what infinite? Moppy said that there are 2 conditions for developing an infinite magic storage. The first condition is that the protagonist must have a certain amount of magic power. And the second condition is an extremely strong emotion. He must want to return the favor with all his heart. Rent remembered that he had just shouted loudly about this. Moppy asked that these are very simple conditions, right? The fairy asked why it took the protagonist 5 years to evolve. Rent began to justify himself and say that it was not that simple. He was scared, he was patient, and tried to do what was in the interests of the squad. It seemed to him that if he demanded that his magic be returned to him, the squad would not cope. He waited for everyone to get back on their feet and return everything themselves. The fairy said that the gentleman was very kind. Moppy called him a kind local fool. Rent was indignant. The fairy suggested to see if anything new had appeared. MC noticed another evolution. The Sword of the Boundless Sky was 2,678,087. Rent asked what this huge number was. Moppy answered that it was the total amount of magic power that he lent to the squad. Rent was surprised that there was so much. Moppy smiled and answered that it had accumulated over 5 years. And the number on the bottom line is the magic power that can be collected. 1,435,837 units. That's how much can be withdrawn in a whole year. This is the skill of forced collection. Rent read it with surprise. Forced collection of magic power from debtors? He was happy. He would get it all back, all the power he gave out. So that's why she had that face. He asked Moppy how he could use it. She answered calmly, without panic. There are certain activation conditions. To do this, you need to enter into a contract with the debtor. Rent was surprised. A contract. Moppy told him that there are types of forced return of magic, but they are complicated. Although if you think about it, she asked him to give it to her, especially since he is a beginner. The protagonist happily agreed. Okay. Adventurers were passing by and one of them asked, look, who is that guy talking to over there? They saw the protagonist sitting and talking, but Moppy was invisible to them. The man said that it was better not to bother this guy, and suggested to move on. The next morning, Guy was telling his partners it was a good evening. Well, today we need to go to the guild and find a new comrade. He saw the protagonist and was surprised. Rent? Guy asked him why he suddenly came back. Elle said that they simply excluded the protagonist from the party. Guy said that MC no longer had a place among them. Misa said that Rent was just in time. She threw him a bundle with things. Take it. The innkeeper put a lot of effort into collecting this junk, and they were already thinking what to do with it. The protagonist showed them his paper with numbers. This is the amount of magic he lent them over the years. Guy was surprised. What? Rent asked if they were ready to return it all. Guy was perplexed. Return it? Misa was surprised and asked what MC made up. The protagonist yelled at them to shut up. They should know better, that when you lend something, you have to return it. He said that his gift is not a tool, like your bracelets. Guy was angry at Rent. He grabbed him by the lapels of his clothes, called him names, and asked if this was how MC was asking them for something. The protagonist was scared. Guy demanded that he show more respect and called him a runt. The girls stood aside and giggled. Guy threw the protagonist on his knees. Rent said, "As you say," and in a different voice, he humbly asked them to return all the magic that MC had lent them. Guy swung his leg and screamed, "Never! Again! Don't come to them!" He kicked the protagonist and said goodbye. Then, as he was leaving, he laughed and said that they would settle the score another time. Rent remained sitting on his knees, and the three walked away and laughed. Mobby flew up to the protagonist. "Beep beep. This is the Central News Agency. Debtor identification successful. Contract created." She turned to the protagonist. "Sir, you can activate the skill." Rent stood up, took the piggy bank in his hands and activated the skill. Forced collection. At this time, the trio moved further and further away. Guy said how annoying Rent was. Elle said she was surprised. Guy said, well, after what he did to the protagonist, MC would never come near them again. Misa said cheerfully, she thought Rent should have been taught a harder lesson so he would remember. Guy said she was stern and Misa laughed. A stream of magic emanated from the trio and returned to the protagonist. Misa felt something. Guy asked her what happened. She answered, "No, nothing." Guy asked again. Maybe she felt the protagonist's gaze on her? She was surprised. Of what? "Don't talk nonsense." And all three of them laughed again. After a while, he was sitting in the tavern. Moppy apologized to him. Rent was surprised and asked what had suddenly come over her. The fairy replied, "That guy, he was better at magic than the protagonist." Well, that's what she thought. The protagonist was indignant. Moppy, she immediately said that she was just joking. He asked again, "Are you sure?" Suddenly, the piggy bank increased in size. The protagonist was surprised. Did it work? Moppy reported, "The collection was successful. Everything is strictly according to the contract. From now on, all their accumulated magic power will be collected automatically here, in the piggy bank." MC looked at his parchment, and indeed, the amount of magic in the storage is increasing. Again, the voice sounded in his head. The conditions for acquiring the skill are fulfilled. He learned the skill, Magic Operation. Moppy said, "It looks like the protagonist has mastered another skill. Magic Operation. This skill consumes the magic power of the user or storage and increases the maximum magic power of the user in the current state. By spending 1,000 units, MC increases his maximum magic power." Moppy asked, "Is something wrong?" The protagonist answered, "No, he just thought there would be something more powerful." Moppy was surprised. What is he talking about? This is the perfect new skill for growth. The protagonist quickly agreed with her. Yes, she is right. Rent thought about it, but he already has an infinite supply, even if he increases his magic level now. He decided to ask, by the way. Moppy said that there are different types of forced collection, right? Which ones? Moppy thought about it and said that she would try to explain in a few words. In general, there are 3 types of forced collection. The first is a one-time, a method of collecting all the magic at once. The second is payment in installments. This is a method in which the number and amount of payments are agreed upon in advance. And the third, known as the Gate to Hell. These are renewable collections. Rent was surprised. Hell? Renewable? Moppy said that today they entered into this very agreement. The protagonist asked her, "What is so scary about renewable collections?" The fairy answered, "A lot of things. It's like a sand trap that you can't get out of, no matter how hard you try. The most hellish collection method. Well, it's just a fixed amount that needs to be paid." MC asked her, "But isn't it the same as installments?" The fairy explained to him, "Installments are just dividing the amount into parts and then collecting. Even if daily payments are difficult, the debtor sees the goal in paying off the debt in full. But recurring collections are completely different. Even if the debtor borrows 100 or 10,000, the amount that must be paid back is the same every time." The protagonist was surprised. "Wow," Moppy continued. "For example, in the case of these bastards, the total amount of magical power of the 3 of them is 3,600. Natural recovery is 360. That is, 10% of this amount every hour, a total of 8,640 units of magical power per day, combined with the 3,000 that can be restored with the bracelet. The maximum amount of magical power that can be collected from idiots in one day is 11,640 units. On the other hand, the amount that can be obtained is 1,435,837 units after 1 year of borrowing, of which there is 8% for 10 days. One can earn 115,000 MP at the end of the year." The protagonist interrupted her and asked, "Wait a minute, does he have to pay interest for his skills?" She answered, "Of course. Such is the power of the infinite magic storage." The protagonist was surprised. He thought she was talking just like a loan shark. Moppy said that if there were 11,640 every day under the condition of collection, it would be 116,410 days. The interest that is charged is 115,000 for 10 days. The protagonist thought about it. Moppy said that the principal amount of the debt is almost not decreasing. Lazy people just keep paying interest, and when a new month begins, there are only more debts. He asked her if they had really managed to make such a contract. Moppy cheerfully confirmed it. Yeah. The protagonist explained. He had left everything up to her discretion. She laughed again and tried to calm him down. Yeah, everything would be fine. These people never thanked MC, so it was time for them to get what they deserved. They insulted him and kicked him out of the squad they had created together. These scum do not deserve pity. The protagonist was scared by her words, and she continued to say that it was necessary to track down these people, crush them with force, plunge them into the abyss of despair, and make them regret everything. Maybe they themselves were incompetent? The protagonist yelled at her, Mappy. She fell silent and asked, Right, sir? He told her that her words frightened him. She replied that she was simply expressing his feelings. He objected to her. That's not true. She was sarcastically surprised. Really? MC thought about it. He had nothing to say in response. Mappy explained that the contract could be changed at any time. He understood everything. She said that she would be surprised if he ever had to apologize for this garbage. He sternly told her that he would think about it. The fairy laughed at him and said that he was too kind, although most likely he was a kind fool. Rent asked her to stop talking like that. She said that he was also a grump. The protagonist's former team was looking for a new team member. They had an open audition. One girl came and said that she was a natural thief and very fast, but they turned her down and said that they did not need such a thing in the adventurer team. Then a man came and said that his gift was dark magic. He was younger than he seemed at first glance. He was also refused and told that they did not need to take care of a decrepit old man. Guy could not stand it and shouted, So everyone get out of here. Today's recruitment is over. What a bunch of losers they all are. Elle supported him and said that they were clearly no match for their wonderful squad. Guy said cheerfully for sure. Misa showed them a picture of the applicant and said that this adventurer looked useful. He was a sniper. He reminded her of someone. The picture looked like a former member of their team, Rent. Guy asked her if she missed Rent. She was indignant at such a question and said that she couldn't stand this man with all her heart. It's good that they got rid of him. Besides, after all these adventures, she found out what kind of guys she likes. She likes a guy with a strong sense of self-worth, reliable and strong. Guy was surprised. Elle said, Hey, Misa shouldn't dare make eyes at her boyfriend. Misa was surprised. Why is Guy her boyfriend? Guy laughed. Okay, enough. Then he saw something on Misa's neck and asked what kind of bruise she had there. Misa was surprised. Why? Elle saw something on Guy's neck too and told him about it. Guy saw the same bruise on Elle. He said that all three of them had it. They started to look at it. Misa stood in front of the mirror and tried to figure out what it was. Elle said that it was a magic sigil. Guy replied that he didn't remember casting any spell. Misa said that they needed to check the statuses. Maybe that would clarify what it was. She looked at the parchment. The magic power was 0. Disappeared. At that moment, the protagonist's piggy bank was filled again. He looked at his parchment and said that the amount of magic in the storage had grown again. The fairy laughed and said that she was sure that those bastards were in a panic right now because of the current situation. Rent said if they knew it was because of his skill, he was sure they would definitely look for him. The fairy asked MC in surprise, Is the master really afraid of them, huh? If so, then he should just give them a beating. He got scared and said he didn't have enough strength anymore. Moppy asked him. He had learned a lot of skills, right? So he needed to make full use of the powers he had acquired. And he had to start from now on. The fairy handed over his piggy bank. He looked at it and asked, So this was a prerequisite for the next evolution of the gift? The fairy reminded him. That day the master's soul had cried out to her, screaming about the miserable days full of pain and begging for a new adventurer to be born in this world, suffering because of a life in which he had to cling to others. But all that was in the past. From now on he would walk his own path and experience his own unique adventures. She said that Rent was incredibly strong and he needed to be more confident. And if there was a problem, she would do her best to support him. The protagonist thanked her for that. He asked her, well, what were their plans for the future now? The fairy showed him his parchment and said that along with the magic collection management, she hoped that they could raise his level and so on. In the meantime, he needed to finish off his E rank. He remembered, then he knew a good place. On the outskirts of Melba City, there was an artificial garden created by an ancient sorcerer. He trained there for a while after the formation of the squad. Moppy asked where that city was. MC replied, it was quite far from here. Even if they went by express carriage, the journey would take about 2 weeks. Moppy understood everything. Even if those scum start pursuing, it will buy them some time. She suggested going to that city right now. The protagonist agreed. Moppy thought 3 weeks would be enough. She said that in 3 weeks the protagonist would have enough strength to defeat those bastards. At that time, Guy, Elle, and Misa were in a panic. They didn't understand how to remove the marks from their necks. The carriage. Rent sat on a bench and thought about the magic operation skill. The protagonist told Moppy that at first only 1,000 units are spent. He increased the maximum level by 10 points. Moppy replied that the condition was met. When using a magic operation, the restoration of magic power doubles. The protagonist was surprised that the restoration increased twofold. Moppy said that the restoration is usually 10%. Cool? And this is far from the limit. In the meantime, they will use the restoration carefully. The coachman shouted that the carriage to Melba will leave soon, and hurried everyone. People hurried to take their seats. Somewhere in the magic shop, Misa, Guy, and Elle tried to figure out what kind of symbol appeared on their backs. They leafed through book after book and nothing fit. The magician asked, "Is this part of the ancient writings?" and tried to find in the book what this sigil means. Misa asked him, "He still hasn't figured it out?" The magician replied that he had been working in this business for over 80 years and never thought that he would come across a spell unknown to him. Guy asked him why he was chatting. He shouted for the old man to solve the problem. The old man apologized. Somewhere in the dungeon, a fight with a monster. Guy fights with a sword, and Misa used a fireball against the monster. Guy cursed and said that the monster touched him. Usually, monsters did not have time to touch him. Misa said that they were lucky that the spell on them was not unlimited. They would definitely cope if they drank a potion and replenished their magic reserves. The cost of such a potion is 10,000 gold per bottle. Guy asked how many bottles of such bottles Misa had. She answered that about 50. Guy was surprised. 50 bottles? Misa said that she paid 500,000 gold for them. Guy replied that they would have to be content with what they had. Misa said that very soon this reserve will also run out. It is necessary to remove the spell. Guy called the protagonist. He asked Elle to help him recover. Elle answered that she cannot help him. She has no magic left. Guy shouted that this is nonsense. He ordered her to drink the potion and replenish the reserve. Elle answered that she does not want to do this because the potion is bitter. Guy told her not to act like a child. Is she really completely useless without magical power? Elle cried loudly, and Guy stood there and got angry. He went in the opposite direction from the girls. Elle begged him to stop. Guy rudely answered that she should not pester him. He thought that maybe it was his fault that Elle did not want to replenish her magic. Elle cried even louder and said that she did not want to drink it. She begged the heavens to return her magic. Guy took Misa by the hand and they walked. Misa realized that the one who cast the curse was Rent. At this time, Rent and Moppy were traveling to the city of Melba. Rent asked the fairy if she liked to admire nature. Moppy answered that she loved doing it. She looked out the window and asked the protagonist what kind of volcano was in the distance. Rent answered that it was the Grimo volcano. There are legends that there is a dragon's nest at its top. Moppy was happy. MC was surprised because he was sure that Moppy knew everything in the world. It was the 6th day of the journey. All this time he consumed magic through collection and increased his maximum power. Thanks to this, his current value is already 4,709 units. This is comparable to the indicators of some great magician. It was an excellent skill, a magic operation. This skill allows him to freely move magical power to the magic storage and back. Now he does not quite know how to use it, but according to the fairy, over time he will understand everything and realize the power of this skill. For now, they can only sit. Rent was impatiently waiting for the next improvement. A total of 350,000 units were spent on the magic operation. The conditions have been met. The magic operation level has increased by 1. The purchase skill has become available. Rent was surprised. Moppy said that the master was able to do it. The protagonist said that there was nothing new written on the parchment. Moppy suggested simply brushing the parchment away and showed the necessary movement with her finger. You need to run your finger along the paper from the bottom up. Rent obediently performed the movement and did not understand what was written there. The fairy asked about this being a great selection. Usually skills are given to people by God himself, and they cannot be simply obtained, but they can be purchased. Therefore, infinite magic storage is a universal skill of the SSS rank. She asked what kind of adventurer Rent would like to become. She is always ready to give advice on this matter. Now the protagonist can obtain almost any skill. Melba City. Rent walked along the streets of the city. It seemed to him that the city was very lively. Adventurers from all over the world come here to go through the great Melba labyrinth. Moppy asked Rent about how he seemed to have been here when he first started traveling. Rent answered, "That's right, in the local guild building." The girl at the reception asked about how the protagonist was probably already a member of some party. Was he sure he wanted to change his location from the previous city to Melba? Rent agreed. The girl said that the registration was complete. She said that Rent had just received the right to challenge the Great Labyrinth. MC told Moppy that this would give him an advantage. The fairy clarified that even if the party came for them, they would not have to be afraid of them. Somewhere in the mountains is the entrance to the Great Labyrinth of Melba. Rent stood at the entrance to the dungeon, as if spellbound. Moppy said, "Forward, sir," and Rent confidently stepped forward. The first level is the Great Plains. Recommended adventurer rank is F. Moppy asked how this happened. The protagonist answered that this is the Great Labyrinth of Melba. It seemed like this space was created by an ancient sorcerer. No one knows for sure. Cute animals were jumping on the green grass. They were Mimitobi rats, small but fierce. They love human flesh. Rent said, "Here come the demons." He took out his dagger and said that the rats appeared at the right time. He was just about to practice his skills. He remembered the conversation with Moppy on the road, when she explained that this skill was for close combat. The dagger was for self-defense, but Rent almost never used it. Moppy then replied that it was high time to use the dagger in practice. Dagger Art Level 1. The cost of use is 1,000 units. Rent deftly swung the dagger. He ripped open the belly of one monster, then the second. He remembered the fairy's words that he should use a long-range attack next. Rent then asked if perhaps he would need magic that he could shoot easily and accurately. Moppy suggested using a fireball. Rent did so. Fire Magic Level 1. Cost 1,000. Rent extended his hand with a dagger and used magic. Moppy was delighted that the master had mastered magic in an instant. Rent said that he was now agile and fast, and with magic too. Magic Manipulation Level 1. Cost 5,000. Body Strengthening Level 1. Cost 5,000. Rent said that it was all thanks to her recommendations that he was able to defeat the monsters. Moppy noticed that the monsters dropped some things. Rent replied that it was a magic stone. When demons are killed in a dungeon, they turn into magic stones comparable to their power. If you take such a stone to the guild, it can be exchanged for money. Moppy was surprised and said that she suddenly became very motivated. Rent looked around and saw 3 adventurers fighting demons. One of them shouted that he had run out of recovery medicine. The other one hurried his friend and said that if they could hold out, they would get paid. Moppy laughed and said that they were classic rookies. Rent said that he used to be like that too, although he was just behind and giving magic power to the party. Moppy said that new demons were targeting them. Rent decided that this time everything would be different and entered the battle. His heart was pounding like crazy. Never before had he felt anything like this. After the battle, he sat down on a rock to rest and used the healing skill. Recovery Magic Level 1. Costs 1,000 units. Moppy said that at this rate they would soon reach the next level. Rent said that he wanted to test himself better. Moppy said that didn't sound bad, so they will do it. Once upon a time, Rent and Misa were riding in a carriage. Rent asked if she remembered that he dreamed of adventures. Misa said, "Of course." She took his hand and said that she always thought about him. That's why when she became an adventurer, she decided that she wanted to be by his side. But does he know that he is completely useless? Rent screamed in anger and woke up. He sat on the bed and realized that it was just a dream. He looked out the window at the bright moon. The gate to the Great Labyrinth. The Great Melba Labyrinth. Level 2. The Great Sea of Goblins. Recommended Adventurer Level E. He walked through the forest and wondered what kind of thickets there were. Suddenly a thought flashed through his mind. The detection of the presence of the first level. Cost to use? 5,000 units. It seems there are goblins ahead, and judging by their number, it's a whole colony. Individually, they are not that strong, but they attack in groups, so fighting them is problematic. Moppy smiled and said that it was time to put the skills to good use. The protagonist agreed with her. 2 goblins were walking through the forest. Rent hid behind a tree, blocking the first level signal. Cost to use, 5,000 units. Suddenly, he cut off the head of one goblin, then dealt with the second. There was a whole colony of goblins very close. Rent noticed 3 goblins gnawing bones. Rent used the skill Release Magic Energy. Magic flew out of the piggy bank. The goblins turned towards the noise. Noticing the stranger, they rushed to attack. But free magic flew in the air like moths. Rent used Fireball, and many balls flew towards the goblins. Rent thought that now he could cast spells in succession. He remembered the fairy's words that the expenditure of magical power was actually a very big strain on the body. She asked if the gentleman could run fast and for a long time. The protagonist answered, no, he would quickly become exhausted. The fairy explained that the same thing happened with magical power. Continuous use of magic was almost impossible. But if you use the release of magical energy, you can wrap the magical power around your body and release it again later. Rent decided to use the same spell in a row. Then he released several at once. Dead goblins lay around. The protagonist came down from the hill and looked at the result of his work. But the gates opened and a huge goblin came out. It was the goblin chieftain, the leader of the colony. Before he could even roar, MC used force and the goblin burned up. Moppy was happy for the gentleman. After all, he conquered the colony alone. Rent answered that he was not alone, she was with him. The fairy laughed and said that it was very sweet of him. She shouted that they should continue in the same spirit. He urged to get more magic stones in the guild. The girl put everything she had gotten on the scale. She was going to count the goblin's magic stones. There were 1,341 of them, which meant 134,100 gold. 10,500 gold was appointed for the goblin leader, who had 21 stones. The other materials obtained during the destruction of the colony were valued at 42,000 gold. Thus, the total reward was 186,600 gold. The other adventurers did not believe that Rent could do it alone. The girl gave out a huge bag of gold. The protagonist could barely hold it in his hands, somewhere in the city. Moppy was eating fried squid and said that it was delicious. It was so crispy. Fresh meat and delicious sauce. She could not stop admiring it. Rent said that thanks to their efforts, his adventurer rank was raised from E to D. Rent said that if he fully utilized the skills he had acquired, he would become even stronger. He was confident that he would be able to stand up for himself when Guy and the others came. But he definitely needed to train. Moppy said that the protagonist had changed cities, and they wouldn't find him that quickly. Rent said that it was only a matter of time before the guys from the squad found out about their contract and came to sort things out. The fairy said that they still needed to save up 150,000 units. Rent was surprised. Moppy said that in that case, they would be able to buy new skills. And then they wouldn't have to be afraid. Rent was surprised about the required number of units because it was so far away. Moppy said that they would quickly reach the quota. She thanked MC for the food. Rent asked if she wanted anything else. Moppy asked if there was anything tasty. Rent smiled and said as many as she wanted. He is ready to thank her for everything. Moppy said that she needs his magic power. Magic power is the best treat for a fairy, like pure nectar. Rent was surprised and said that she should have said this earlier. The fairy replied that becoming a master was much more important. Rent asked how much she wanted. The fairy's eyes sparkled and she said that she agreed to 100. Rent asked how to do it correctly. Moppy stretched her lips into a kiss. The protagonist was indignant, but the fairy said that direct contact was needed. This is the most effective and convenient way. The protagonist agreed. He kissed Moppy on the lips. From emotions, the fairy fell into the protagonist's palms. He asked her, how was it? Moppy answered that it was great. Rent thought about the fact that this was his first kiss. Once upon a time, a horse-drawn carriage rolled through the forest. In the carriage were Rent, Misa, and Guy. Misa said that Rent is so cool. After all, he has a unique skill. She always knew that he was destined to become an adventurer. Rent replied that Guy said the same thing. Guy said that he had no choice and laughed. Misa said that Guy was a swordsman, and his skill was average. D-rank gifts are not that rare. She asked about them traveling together now. Rent agreed and said that together they should create many new stories. Misa looked piercingly at the protagonist and said that adventures are good, but can they be together in another way? Rent became shy. Misa asked if Rent loved her. The protagonist said, of course. Misa asked him to kiss her as proof of his feelings. Rent was sweating from excitement. He tried to kiss her, but she put an apple in her place. Rent screamed. Misa laughed and apologized. She said that she was not ready for a relationship yet. Rent replied that he understood. Guy asked in his sleep, why are the guys so noisy? Rent said that Guy was awake. Misa said that the journey to the city would take a little longer. Might as well sleep. Rent sat on the bed and felt angry, despairing, and lost. If he hadn't met Moppy, what would he be like now? The feeling he felt was a little different from the feeling of love and affection for someone. But looking at her sleeping face, his heart healed. He felt alive and happy. He covered her with a blanket and wished her good night. The guild member said, as she had said before, Mr. Rent was currently in this city. Guy yelled at her. How the hell was that possible? They had been looking for him for days. The girl said that she was very sorry to hear that. Guy yelled at her. Who did she think he was? Misa asked him to calm down. After a while, she looked at her parchment. She knew it. Misa told the rest of the team that compared to yesterday, the amount of magic had decreased. Guy cursed at Rent and asked, so the protagonist steals their magic power? Misa said that she hadn't noticed it until now and didn't keep track of the amount of magic power they borrowed. That was strange. Guy was surprised and looked at her questioningly. She said that their squad, bracelets, and the total magic power of their natural recovery and reduction of the amount of borrowed magic were too little. Guy asked what she was talking about. She answered that she didn't understand much herself yet. Elle asked, how much longer should they rely on these potions? They were bitter and expensive. Misa told her that they would have to be patient for now. If each of them drank 45 bottles to replenish their strength, then the loss of magic for the day would be 0. Elle screamed that she didn't want to do it anymore, and asked them to drink the potion for her. Guy got angry. What was she talking about? Misa was surprised by her words and thought, should she drink for her? She came up with a plan. The next day, they saw the same old man who came to ask to join their squad at the guild. The girls approached him and asked if the old man remembered them. He grinned. They were from that squad, right? They were happy. He remembered them. So great. They surrounded him from both sides. Misa said that they were currently having a lot of problems. Elle supported her and said that they needed this old man. The old man was surprised. They needed him? Some time ago, when Misa had a plan in her head, she told them about it. She suggested thinking about what the nature of this spell was. If it was something that took a certain amount of magic power from the entire squad, then they needed to increase the total amount of magic power in the group. They just needed to find a recruit with a high magic stat. Guy was happy, for sure. This would reduce the influence on the others. Elle admitted that Misa was a genius. They looked through the questionnaires and found that old man. He has as many as 4,200, quite a lot, and now they are sitting in the guild and luring the old man. Other adventurers came to the guild and one of them called the old man and apologized to him for waiting. The old man was happy. Oh, finally. The guy asked who these girls were. The old man was surprised, and this? Well, they just wanted to ask him something. Misa was surprised and asked the old man, "Is he no longer free?" The old man answered, "Not quite. He heard that a strange curse lies on them. The whole guild already knows about it." He apologized and said that he does not want to get involved with such a person. Misa was indignant. What's wrong with him? Elle tried to calm her down and asked her not to worry further. Two adventurers were talking off to the side. A bearded man and a girl thief, who also came to them to hire themselves into the party. The bearded man was surprised. Just look. The girls said that they refused to accept her into their group, and now they go and beg. And there was no need to look down on everyone. The bearded man answered her, "It seems that these three really pissed someone off and were cursed." The girl agreed with him, for sure. But she liked them. But now their time has passed. Guy heard these words and asked, "Is this what she says about them?" Misa grabbed the bearded man by the lapels, called him names, and demanded that he stop talking nonsense. Guy grabbed the bearded man, shook him and shouted, "Is it their time that has passed?" Elle screamed loudly at everyone and demanded that they stop the scandals. The girl, a servant of the guild, said the name of their party, the Sword of the Boundless Sky Party, and reported that their request had been processed. The guild has information about the location of Mr. Rent. Misa was happy, right? Guy shouted, "Where is he?" The girl told them, Mr. Rent was stationed in the city of Melba. Misa was surprised. Melba? Elle was indignant. The city of the Great Labyrinth? Misa was still surprised. How did the protagonist end up so far from here? Guy was very angry and said, he doesn't care where it is, he will find the protagonist and kill him. Meanwhile, the protagonist was moving through the labyrinth. The fairy saw the entrance. This is it, the entrance to the 3rd floor, MC told her. The monsters only get stronger and more dangerous from here. You'll have to sweat. They entered the 3rd floor. Floor 3, the Wraith Cave. Recommended adventurer rank D. Moppy said that she had a feeling of being trapped, the dimly lit passages, and this gloomy air. Finally, something similar to a classic dungeon. Rent agreed with Moppy and said that she was right. His heart even started beating faster. Moppy said cheerfully that hers did too. Suddenly a skeleton attacked them. The protagonist took out his knife and used quick attack magic. The skeleton was defeated. MC was surprised and said that it was sudden. He thinks that the monsters that appear here attack based on sound. The fairy said, "In that case, maybe we should talk mentally?" The protagonist got scared. "Is there a voice in his head?" Moppy calmed him down. "It's okay, he can talk like that too." The protagonist transmitted his thought to her and called her Moppy. She also transmitted his thoughts to him and said that she could hear him. MC mentally said, "It's a pity that she didn't tell him about this useful thing when they were riding in the carriage." The fairy laughed and apologized. They went on and met a couple more skeletons along the way, which they quickly dealt with. The fairy mentally told the protagonist, "This is much cooler than the other levels." The protagonist answered her, "But the caves here are quite confusing. You have to be careful not to be attacked from blind spots." The protagonist used presence detection. "It seems there are adventurers nearby fighting a monster." Moppy smirked. "That monster? Who?" The protagonist realized what was happening there and broke free. He ran in that direction. The fairy called him, "Sir?" "What happened?" He told her, "It seems they are irregulars too." Moppy was surprised. "Irregulars?" MC explained. "They are strong enemies that do not fit into the difficulty level of the dungeon. In rare cases, demons from the deeper floors end up on the upper ones. That is exactly what is happening ahead." The fairy was surprised and asked him not to tell her that he wants to join them and help. He apologized and said that he was probably too soft-hearted. The fairy laughed and replied, "It's okay. She can really feel the benefit of this situation." He quickly ran through the labyrinth and suddenly collided with other adventurers and fell. The guy asked the protagonist what he was running around here for. Rent apologized. The second adventurer said that now was not the time for talking. The third was a girl. She said that if they wanted to survive, it was better to run away. The three of them ran to the exit. The girl could not believe it. They were really running with their tails between their legs. The first adventurer said that it was better this way than to be killed. The second said that they would have luck, but not here. and they left. The fairy flew up to the protagonist and asked, "Are these the same adventurers who were attacked?" He answered, "No, but these ones also spotted the Irregular. But someone obviously remained." Moppy asked, "And he did not manage to escape?" At that moment, the protagonist heard a noise and commanded, "Forward, Moppy." They ran to the next turn and there was a dead end. The fairy was surprised. "What? A dead end?" The protagonist was no less surprised than she. He looked up and mentally told her, "No, you have to look closely. This wall is made of a different material than the surrounding walls." He touched the wall and said, "This is a creation of magic. It is warm. It must have been created recently." He thought that it was the work of those three adventurers. The protagonist asked Moppy to move away. MC used magic and sent a fireball at the wall. The wall immediately flew apart. They came closer and saw a strange picture. The protagonist whispered, "Is that a four-armed skeleton?" Moppy pointed in the other direction and asked the master to look there. There was a girl with a sword. She shouted at the skeleton that she would not give up and demanded that he attack her. The skeleton bared his teeth in a smile and began to attack. The girl resisted as best she could. She barely kept up. The adventurer swore at her and shouted at her to move faster. She apologized and said that she understood everything. Sometime before that, three adventurers were healing each other. One of them said, "Too long." The magician replied, "Come on already." The guy said that today they should break through to the third level. The magician replied, "For now he has enough magic. If only they don't run into a whole horde of creatures." The wounded girl in armor turned to them and said that she also needed to be treated. The guy was surprised. "What? Is she talking about this scratch?" The magician replied that they need to save magic. He can't afford to waste resources on her. The third adventurer said that Rinka is useless anyway. She needs to pull herself together. Rinka apologized. The guy told her that she was always dragging them down. They were still in rank D only because of her. Rinka apologized again. The third adventurer put her in her place, saying that she was at it again. Enough of endless apologies. It would be better for Rinka to show herself in action. Suddenly, a strange sound was heard. All four tensed up and froze. A skeleton with 4 arms appeared in front of them. The adventurers were scared. What is this?" Someone asked, "Is the boss on the third level?" One of them answered, "No, it's an Irregular." Rinka pulled out her sword and rushed into battle. They were surprised and tried to stop her. "Rinka?" But she answered, "This time, she will not let them down." The guy smiled arrogantly and said, "That's right, be really useful, at least one last time." Rinka was surprised. "What?" She saw the three of them run away and erect a magical wall. They hid behind the wall and laughed. Then the guy said, "Okay, time to go." Rinka was left alone against the Irregulars. A thought flashed through her mind. Just don't tell me they decided to wall her up here with the boss? She fought off his 4 hands and dodged as best she could. She thought, was she abandoned? And then she answered herself, no. She was just buying them time so that the 3 of them could escape safely. The skeleton did not get tired and continued his attacks. Rinka remembered how the 3 told her that she was dragging them down. If it were not for her, they would have been much stronger by now. Rinka fought off the skeleton's attacks. She firmly decided that she would fight to the last. She shouted at him to attack. At that moment, Rent appeared. He used magic and sent a fireball at the skeleton. The skeleton was knocked down. The fairy happily shouted, "Hey, Mr. Knuckle, how does a fireball taste?" Rent approached Rinka and asked if she was okay. He said that he would heal her now. At that moment, the skeleton moved. Rinka screamed in surprise, "Alive!" The skeleton gets up. The protagonist was just as surprised as she was. The skeleton stood up and attacked the protagonist with all 4 of its arms. The protagonist thought, this monster isn't that simple, is it? Then there's only one option left. MC used the fireball again. He found the right place to direct it, and here's the core. The protagonist tried to hit it, but he didn't have time to dodge it himself and received a powerful blow and flew to the side. Moppy flew up to him and asked if the master was okay. He answered, yeah, relatively. He found the skeleton's weak spot, and he's ready to finish it off with one blow. Rent resorted to magic, a magic operation, and directed it at the skeleton. Get it? Then he created a magical fireball X20. He directed all that power at the skeleton and smashed it into tiny pieces. At this time in the city, people were chatting with admiration on the streets. 3 guys were talking and one asked, "Hey, have you heard? There's a meteor shower in Melba right now." Another asked in surprise, "A rank squad?" The third asked if he should go and have a look at them. The members of this squad were already in the guild. One of them was Roger, a member of the meteor shower squad. He was signing autographs for all the admirers of his person. One of the guys in the guild asked if Roger could sign his shirt. Roger was surprised. A shirt? The guy is sure? The guy confirmed, yes, and said that the shirt will be his talisman on his travels. Roger signed his shirt for him, since that's what he wanted. Another member of the meteor shower squad was Comet. She called out to Roger and said that if he didn't eat his rice, then she would eat it. Roger asked her to wait and said that he would finish soon. She replied that she wouldn't wait for it to dry. The third member of the meteor shower squad was Nymeria. She said that Roger was as popular as always. The fourth member of the meteor shower squad was Jin. He told all the onlookers in the guild that they were going to conquer the great labyrinth. Do they think Lady Luck will smile upon them? The onlookers shouted at the same time, of course. I'd bet on success. Of course. Roger tried to calm them down. Hey, this isn't a bet on money. The fifth member of the meteor shower squad was Fugue. He sat silently, lost in his thoughts. The door to the guild swung open, and the trio of fugitive adventurers ran in shouting, "Trouble!" An Irregular appeared in the great labyrinth. On the third level, a huge skeleton with 4 arms. Roger thought about what he heard. 4-armed skeleton? The guild manager girl asked if they were all safe. Where exactly did they see it? She was ready to send a strike team there immediately. The guy from the trio replied that they were safe, but their friend, Rinka, was not. He said that Rinka decided to distract the skeleton and thus allow them to escape. The manager was surprised. What, so she stayed there? He told her, yes. Most likely, Rinka did not survive. The manager turned to the girl behind the counter and asked to immediately check if there were any signs of life in the labyrinth. The girl began to check. The 3 escapees groaned and made pitiful faces. Oh, Rinka, she didn't wish anyone harm. The girl behind the counter reported good news. Rinka was still alive. The manager was happy. How wonderful. One of the onlookers said that we should immediately go after her. The 3 escapees whispered among themselves, what, seriously? They locked her in, didn't they? Roger slapped his hand on the table and said loudly, okay. His squad will destroy the Irregular and save Rinka. The guild manager approached him and asked, really? Is he sure? Roger replied that they hadn't been in the labyrinth for a long time. They would take a short trip to get used to it. The guy from the 3 escapees asked his squad mates, did you hear? They're heading there. That's encouraging. A loud voice came from the door. There's no need for that. Everyone looked towards the door. The protagonist and Rinka were standing there. MC told everyone that he had already dealt with the skeleton. The 3 fugitives were terrified, as if they had seen a ghost. Rent was holding a huge magic stone in his hand. He said that he had killed the Irregular and that this was all that was left of him. Roger asked if that was Rent. Rent was happy and said that they hadn't seen each other for a long time. Roger asked the protagonist who the girl next to him was. The girl introduced herself as Rinka and that Mr. Rent had helped her escape. The adventurers praised the protagonist for saving the girl. One of the guys asked Rent about the fact that they had passed him in the dungeon. Jin pulled the guy up and asked what kind of small talk this was. This guy could have said thank you. Rent said that there was no need for that. MC said loudly that this squad used the girl as bait. The guy tried to protest. Everyone around started whispering, like bait? But they said that she stayed there herself. The guy shouted that everything was wrong and that it was nonsense. Rent handed the girl, the guild administrator, a piece of the wall that was created with magic. He said that they conjured the wall and cut off Rink's exit. If you check the stone, you can find out the person who created the wall. The people were outraged. The guy turned to Rink and asked about the protagonist lying. And this is not true? He demanded that she not stand there like a pillar and say something. Roger said that adventurers are fickle people. There is no guarantee that they will be alive tomorrow. Therefore, adventurers always trust those they take into the squad. And these 3 cowards only know how to betray and abandon their own. He extended his sword forward and put it to the throat of the guy. Roger proudly said that traitors have no right to live. The guy stood there sweating from fear. He couldn't utter a word. Roger was stopped by a tap on his shoulder. It was Fuga. Fuga and Roger exchanged glances. Roger put away his sword and said that all right, he would spare him. The guild administrator asked if they really thought they had an excuse. Roger suggested going hunting for a change and invited Rent to come along. He said that he hoped the protagonist was free the day after tomorrow evening. Rent replied that they would definitely see each other again. Jin ruffled Rent's hair and said that it was a great job. Nymeria said, see you later. Only Comet pushed Rent and told him not to stand in the passage. Fuga apologized to MC, to which Rent replied, no problem. Mobby told the protagonist that they were a noisy company. Rent laughed and replied that it was a meteor shower. The guild administrator approached Rinka and Rent and asked if they could be disturbed. She invited them to a conversation about what had happened. There was a suspended crystal on the table. After the conversation, the administrator said that that was all for today and thanked them for their cooperation. She said that the crystal had been shining blue all this time, which meant that everything she had said was true. Rinka asked what would happen to those 3. The administrator replied that they had just been interrogated in a separate room. For such behavior and for falsely reporting to the guild, they face a serious sentence and lifelong exclusion from adventurers. They will work in the mines for a long time. Rinka answered, I understand. Leaving the guild, Rinka once again thanked Rent for everything. The protagonist asked her what she would do now. Rinka replied that she had no plans. The team disbanded on its own. Rent showed a bag of gold and asked to look at it. He He said that this is how much money they earned by destroying that skeleton. He said that it happened thanks to her, and asked permission to treat her. Rinka became embarrassed and said that he shouldn't do this. She felt awkward. Rent smiled and said that he, too, had been abandoned by his partners. Rinka was surprised and said that if that was the case, then she could listen to his complaints. They went to the tavern. Sitting at the table, Rinka said that she had already been abandoned 7 times. Rent asked again, 7? Rinka sadly answered that her heart was breaking from this. Her gift does not allow her to leave the battlefield. Rinka, the path of the assura, age 18, rank SSS. Rent was surprised. He asked, isn't this a unique gift? Rinka answered that in fact, these are just words. She is so weak that she cannot cope with her own sword, but her gift makes her fight, and this happens until her death, such is her fate. Rent answered that he too suffered with his gift. His former partners left when he became useless to them. He hated himself for being weak, but his gift saved him. His gift is called infinite magic storage. It is also a unique skill, like hers. Rinka wondered if she could become so confident one day. Rent asked if she wanted to form a party with him. His gift was to support others. He was sure that they would work well together. Rinka remembered the words they had said in the party. That she was useless and her gift was trash. If it weren't for her, the party would be stronger. She apologized to the protagonist and said that working with her would only slow him down. It would be better for her to work alone. Moppi laughed and appeared on the table, right in front of Rinka. The girl got scared and tried to hit the fairy, but missed. Moppi said that she was pleased to meet her. She was helping Mr. Rent. She introduced herself, that her name was Moppi and she was a fairy. Rinka was surprised. Moppi apologized for scaring the girl. The fairy said that initially she was only visible to Mr. Rent, but thanks to his development of abilities, she can now show herself to anyone she wants. Rinka touched the fairy with her finger. Moppi asked her not to poke her too hard. She asked not to worry. Mr. Rent would never judge her because she was a good investment. Rinka asked what investment meant. Rent asked Moppi what she was talking about. The fairy replied that it was a compliment. Rent said that if Rinka worked with him, she would become stronger. If she became stronger, then he would grow. It was a win-win proposition. Rinka understood the essence of Rent's gift. She asked about whether she could really become strong. The protagonist answered, of course. He asked, she didn't believe him, did she? Rinka remained silent. Rent asked to try his scheme for just one day. Rinka thought about it and replied that since he saved her, she would believe him. At least he will try. The next day at the guild, the girl at the reception asked whether to register the two of them. Rent confidently said yes. The girl asked what their squad was called. The friends looked at each other, and Rent answered, double deflection, somewhere in the shop. Someone asked for 20 restorative potions. The shopkeeper called out to Misa. He said that he didn't know how to tell this to a regular customer, but the effect of this potion was that it borrowed magic in advance. He said that if you use the potion too often, there will be problems one day. Misa asked the shopkeeper about him lecturing customers. She said that she doesn't use the potion that often. She snorted and left. The shopkeeper said, looking after her, it happens every time. The coachman shouted that the express carriage to Melba was leaving soon. One of the passengers asked a fellow traveler about a squad of 2-headed silver wolves sitting at the other end of the carriage. He wasn't sure if they were B rank. The fellow traveler answered in the affirmative and added that they would be traveling safely. At that moment, Guy, Misa, and Elle entered the carriage. Guy rudely suggested that the other squad swap places. The leaders of the 2-headed silver wolf squad are Destra and Sinistra. Elle approached the sitting girl and brazenly said that she envied her soft spot. Misa said that their place was the worst. Guy ordered to give up their seats to them. Destra asked, looking at the impudent guys, that this is the squad of the Sword of the Infinite Sky. They are considered to be the fastest growing of the B rank in history. Guy grinned and asked, but they are the 2-headed silver wolf, always dragging themselves at the end of the B rank. The guy stood up and sharply asked Guy about the fact that he decided to mock their squad. This guy's name is Roly, a member of the 2-headed silver wolf squad. Guy asked, did he hit the sore spot? Roly replied that he should not dare to mock them. Destra and Sinistra stood up and offered to give up their seat to the guys from their squad. One of the girls from the squad tried to stop the squad leader. Destra told Guy that these seats were theirs, the beautiful squad. Misa waved her hand at the departing ones and said, shoo. Guy called the guys' names. On the road, Elle asked Misa if she brought alcohol. Misa answered, of course. Sarika, a member of the 2-headed silver dragon squad, asked her friends that the squad wasn't very nice. She asked the squad leader if it was a good idea to give up their seats. Destra answered that it was an express carriage. In it, they will get to their destination twice as fast as in a high-speed carriage. This is because it travels along dangerous paths that ordinary carriages cannot overcome. The person sitting at the end of such a carriage, according to an unspoken rule, is the guardian of the entire journey. They themselves chose this role for themselves and do not even know it. Sarika was outraged that the squad was laughing as if they didn't care about anything. And they were drinking alcohol. Destra told Sarika not to shout like that. Sinistra said that a B-rank squad couldn't be so careless. Shannon, a member of the two-headed Silver Wolf squad, sighed loudly and said that she hated those guys. Late at night, the cart rushed through the forest. One of the guards told another that the forest was as creepy as always. The second guard agreed with him. A guard noticed danger on the road through a spyglass. He shouted, "Orcs!" Everyone in the wagon looked at each other. The orcs were sitting in the middle of the road and finishing off their prey. A guard shouted that the orcs had already dealt with the convoy. He shouted loudly that there were 3 orcs on the road, and they needed reinforcements. The entire two-headed Silver Wolf squad stood up in unison. Destra said that it looked like they had work to do. Rolly shouted for Guy and his companions to wake up and go to battle. Guy barely rubbed his sleepy eyes and asked why Rolly was yelling. Destra said that help for the guards was left to their squad. She asked to show what they were capable of. Elle said that their opponents were high orcs. Guy replied that they, a B-rank squad, could easily defeat the orcs. Destra said that their squad would take the right orc. Guy replied that the left orc would be theirs. The guard said that the convoy would take the middle orc. There was a deep forest around, and we had to finish off the orcs before other monsters showed up. Destra said confidently, whereas usually we'll deal with the orcs faster. Sarika concentrated and used acceleration for the squad. Rolly attacked the orc. While the orc was swinging, Destra and Sinistra surrounded him and bound him with the chains of humility. Shannon used a fire tornado against the orc. All that was left of the orc was a pile of ash. Sarika proudly announced the destruction time of 7 seconds. It was a good result, although not a record. The guys looked at the success of the other warriors. The convoy fought bravely, striking at the orc. The orc got angry and scattered the convoy in different directions. Rolly caught one of the guards. Destra and Sinistra teamed up and used silver scissors. The orc fell dead. The convoy thanked the squad for their help. They said that the squad was great. Destra said that the convoy also held up well. The second squad continued to fight nearby. Guy was exhausted, screaming for Elle to use her amplification magic. Elle replied that she could not use it because she had not drunk the potion. Misa cursed and said that she was going to throw up after a bottle of potion. The people around didn't understand what this squad was doing. Misa and Elle screamed in one voice that the orc was approaching them. They begged Guy to do something. Guy was completely exhausted. He did not understand why the potion did not have time to work on him. He threw the bottle with the potion aside and began to wave his sword. He was sure that no one would take away his skills. The orc approached him and hit him with a club. Guy was completely exhausted. Elle and Misa could not help him in any way and just stood there watching. The orc pushed Guy and he flew into the girls. Misa cursed him. What was he doing? Guy asked, "Is it really an orc?" In good times, they killed them in droves. Guy, dirty and with a broken face, grabbed his sword and went on the attack again. The orc kicked him in the face with a huge foot. Guy thought about if only he could use his powers to the fullest. If only he had magic power. While he was thinking about this in flight, Destra and Sinistra ran up and cut off the orc's head. They said that the fight was over and the way was clear. Misa and Elle stood there in complete confusion. Destra and Sinistra apologized for interfering in someone else's fight. They said that they were protecting the wagon and were simply doing their duty. Guy muttered through clenched teeth that there was no need for that. They could have handled it themselves. Destra asked, "Really?" They readily believed. Reputation is a fragile thing. Guy screamed. What did they blurt out? He crouched down and said that it hurt him to walk. Sinistra asked Sarika to heal the injured squad. Sarika was indignant. She did not want to waste her magic reserves. Sinistra calmly replied that she should not worry. Much magic would not be needed. The convoy did not understand what happened to the best squad. They were no longer sure that that squad was in the leaders of rank B. Rolly said that it seemed like the rumors were true. He heard that there was a spell that deprived this squad of the ability to use skills. The guard asked if they were praising their rank, they should be able to fight without skills, right? Sarika healed the injured and shouted loudly for them to get up quickly. We need to leave here before more monsters arrive. Further in the cart, the squad of the two-headed Silver Wolf rode in the best seats, and the battered squad of the Sword of the Boundless Sky silently rode on the side seats. The people in the cart whispered about the terrible battle and someone's defeat. Guy thought that they would have won if not for the mark on each of their backs. Misa was sure that it was all because of rent. They were silently angry. The registration of the new squad is complete. The guild manager wished them a pleasant journey. Their squad was called Double Deviation. Melba City, rank F, Rent and Rinka. Moppy reported that Rent had joined the second squad. The requirements for skill growth have been met. Lending magic has increased to level 2. Rinka asked the protagonist what happened. He looked at his parchment and said that it seemed like his skills had improved. He had a new skill, auto-compensation. MC asked the fairy what this skill was. Moppy explained that when the debtor's magic falls below a set level, this skill automatically grants the protagonist magical power, and he no longer needs to check the magical power of his companions during battle. The protagonist was surprised. Oh, how convenient. Rinka handed the protagonist some repair fluid and said, by the way, she used this thing that he lent her yesterday. She smeared it on her armor, and everything became as good as new. Rent answered her. He was glad that it helped. Oh, by the way, he led her to the weapon. She asked, what? The protagonist showed her the sword. She was surprised. A new weapon? He asked. She broke her sword in the last battle, right? MC brought the weapon of the four-armed skeleton and melted it down. The master said, great material. He was glad to work with such. Rinka took the sword in her hands. The master said that everything was already paid for and she should not be shy. Come on, sister, take it. She carefully took out the sword. The protagonist and the master looked at her carefully. Rent asked, how is it? Rinka answered, amazing, she can cut anything. She thanked the protagonist. The master flashed through his mind. Maybe it seemed so, but for a moment, she seemed to him to be the most terrifying swordsman in the world. After a while, they headed to the Great Melba Labyrinth, and immediately went to the second level. On the way, Rinka asked to let her explain her abilities to the protagonist once again. Her most useful skill is self-enhancement. She can use magic power to strengthen herself. Once this is activated, she uses up all her magic until the enemy in front of her is defeated. 7 units are spent upon activation. After that, 1 unit is spent every 10 seconds. Her maximum reserve is 10 units. Now she can only use the ability for 40 seconds. Moppy intervened and asked, on the other hand, if the party member's magic does not run out, then her skill will not be interrupted, right? The protagonist said that this is possible thanks to his magic borrowing skill and the recently acquired auto-compensation. Rinka asked incredulously, is this really possible? Their conversation was interrupted by a noise. Rinka recognized what it was, a goblin horn. The fairy said that the goblins seemed to have noticed them. That's great. Rent said that he would try to lend Rink some magic. She doubted it. But he said that everything would work out. He asked her to trust him and herself too. Rink agreed. Good. She pulled out her sword and said, from the first blow to the last, her sword will cut and destroy. This is her path, the path of assura. And she rushed into battle. The fairy said that now it was the protagonist's turn. He resorted to auto-compensation magic. If the magic is less than 9 units, then the magic is borrowed. Rink killed the goblins one after another, quickly moving between them. The protagonist wondered, is this her true power? She cut the goblins without stopping, despite the fact that there were many of them and her fatigue. The protagonist told the fairy that Rink's gift is a serious thing. The power is simply off the scale. The fairy agreed and said that the only drawback was the high consumption of magic. No wonder the normal squad couldn't unlock her potential. And yet, this ability of hers, just 1 unit of magic every 10 seconds, is awesome. The protagonist said that he thought that in the future, Rinka's skill would improve and more magic would be required. And yet, it wasn't that much of an improvement, rather it was her fault. At this time, Rinka had already killed almost everyone and the goblin leader rushed towards her to attack. Rinka swung her sword and cut him in half. It was all over. She stood among a pile of corpses. The protagonist screamed, "Great! Amazing, Rinka!" In just a couple of minutes, she managed to kill all those goblins. He ran up to her, took the sword and put it back in its sheath. He saw how her gaze changed. She gasped and fell on him, thereby knocking the protagonist to the ground. She apologized and said she was just tired. Her skill had never lasted so long. Their faces were very close to each other, and the protagonist told her so. She jumped up and apologized right away. The fairy said, "It's cute. They're just like a couple." MC asked her not to talk nonsense. When they returned to the city, they went to the guild. There they handed over the goblin magic stones. The manager said a total of 1,043 stones. Their total cost will be 104,300 gold. The goblin chieftain's magic stones are 15 pieces, that's 9,000 gold. The goblin seeds obtained from destroying the colony, 18 pieces, that's 36,000 gold. The manager handed the heavy bag to the protagonist and said, "This is their reward." Suddenly, Rinka called Rent and said with surprise, "Oh my god. Just today, the maximum amount of magic increased by 4 units. MC said that he congratulated her on this. She said that in the past 3 years, she had only gained 2 units, so it was all thanks to the protagonist. She thanked him from the bottom of her heart. Rent said that he had only helped. She had done all the work herself. She said that in fact she still couldn't believe what had happened today. He calmed her down and asked her to believe him. He had seen everything. It was simply magnificent. She was simply incomparable, and he asked her to be proud of her for it. Moppy intervened in their conversation and apologized for interrupting them. She would like to inform you about today's loan from Mrs. Rinka. The fairy quickly ran her fingers over the accounts and said, Since the skill is activated once, a total of 126 units. The activation time is 1 hour and 21 minutes. 1 unit is spent every 40 seconds, so it came out to 490, a total of 616 units. Rinka said that she understood. From now on, she will become stronger and repay the debt. Mabi added, by the way, all this is only at 10%. There is no repayment period. Rinka quickly realized this too. The protagonist wondered when was the last time he was thanked for his help? He remembered how Guy spoke with gratitude at the very beginning of their journey together. His skills rose to a new level. Misa then said that all this is thanks to the protagonist. Now Rent firmly decided from now on he will not screw up anymore. This time they will be strong together with Rinka. The fairy interrupted his thoughts. Sir, to celebrate the creation of the squad, she offered a delicious meal. He asked Rinka what she would like. She thought and said, perhaps meat. He agreed with her. An excellent choice. The Great Labyrinth of Melba, Level 8, Dragon Mountain. Here, the meteor shower team brought down a dragon. They tried to peel off the dragon scales. Jin said that these dragon scales are very durable. They are difficult to peel off. Fuga replied, the request said that 30 of these were needed. Jin was surprised. 30? I didn't know that collecting dragon scales is harder than killing the dragon itself. He shouted to the rest of the squad that they should help too. Nymeria replied, nope. They guys should do the hard work. Comet said she wasn't a laborer. Jin got mad at them. What impudent mugs. Roger suddenly appeared and said hello. Jin asked him where he'd been. Don't tell me you were inside the dragon. Roger laughed and said he almost dissolved in gastric juice. Jin got mad at him, called him names and said he warned him not to do anything dangerous. Roger apologized peacefully. Forgive me. Forgive me. At that time, worms crawled out of a hole in the dragon's body from behind Roger and tied Comet and Nymeria's hands and feet. Roger was surprised. A parasite inside the dragon? Nymeria gasped in fear and screamed, do something already. Jin asked her not to make strange sounds. Fuga stood silently and thought. At this time in the guild building, Rinka was talking to the protagonist. She was surprised. What? A dinner with a meteor shower? The protagonist explained to her that Roger invited him the other day, so MC thought it would be nice and decided to invite Rinka. She screamed, no, no, no. She is only an F-rank adventurer. She has no right to be there. The protagonist tried to calm her down. No need to belittle yourself like that. She replied, wait, Rent, and asked him, so he knows them personally? He replied, yeah. Since his previous squad started attracting attention, they had a few drinks with them. Rinka was surprised, so that's how it is. After some time, Rinka walked the protagonist to the bar. She told him she hoped he would have a nice evening tonight. Rent came to the bar, sat down at a table, and thought it had been a long time since he had a drink with Roger. The protagonist was really looking forward to it, but it felt somehow inappropriate. Someone came up to him from behind and said sorry for being late. The protagonist tensed up, turned his head. Nymeria, where did she come from? Weren't they all on a mission? She said that since they had decided to have a drink with him together, she decided to dress up. She asked if he liked her outfit. He hesitated and answered, very beautiful. She grabbed his cheeks and squeezed them and said, what? She asked him to look into her eyes. She said that he blushed deeply and that he was cute as always. Roger came up from behind and patted Nymeria on the shoulders. Hey, what kind of stupid outfit is that? When did she manage to change her clothes? Nymeria told him that he hurt her. Roger is so stupid. She turned to Rent and asked him to tell Roger that the protagonist was enjoying everything. Then the three of them sat and drank, toasting themselves. They quickly drank a huge mug. Roger asked for another ale. Nymeria said that she did too. The protagonist thought how fast they were. They looked at him in surprise and Roger asked, what is it? Rent? The protagonist answered, everything is fine, and he thought, if he keeps up with these two, he will die of a hangover. Roger turned to him again and said that he heard a lot of rumors about his past squad. He asked the protagonist, was he expelled? Rent told the whole story that happened to him and the past squad. Roger said that he was sorry to hear it. The protagonist wanted to tell something else, but Roger said that it was better to drink and forget about everything bad. MC apologized to them and said that now is not the best time for drinking. Nymeria was upset by what she heard. What a terrible story. After 5 years, to kick out a friend like that. Roger summed it up and said that they were just bad people. Lately, all you hear about is their failures. Apparently, everything was based on the protagonist alone. Roger asked Rent, he has the ability to store magic, right? They must have forgotten that they had high hopes for the protagonist. Nymeria remembered, and their group reached B rank faster than everyone else. Roger was also upset. Yeah, no wonder they were all such narcissists. Rent shared his thoughts with Roger and Nymeria and said that now that he thinks about it, maybe he was the one clinging to them. In their adventures together, he was content with giving them his magic. And the protagonist did not think about creating his own path on his own. He deserved to be expelled. Rent was truly pathetic then. Nymeria and Roger listened to the protagonist attentively. Then Roger said that Rent had become so mature. The protagonist was surprised. Huh? Really? Nymeria whispered in the protagonist's ear that Roger would always be a big child compared to MC. Roger heard her words and asked Nymeria if she was talking about him. Nymeria explained that it was all because of their fight with that dragon. MC asked again in surprise, "A dragon? Doesn't that only appear on the 8th level of the Great Labyrinth?" Roger confirmed. Yeah, they had a bit of fun there today. The protagonist was delighted. Cool. There are a lot of strong dragons there, right? Roger replied, yeah, those lizards can be troublesome sometimes. Nymeria whispered to the protagonist again and again after they defeated the dragon. But Roger interrupted her. She started again. Can she not embarrass him for at least a few seconds? But Nymeria continued the story. When they were collecting materials, Roger made a big mess. Because of him, dragon parasites crawled out. The protagonist became emotional and turned to them. Roger, Nymeria. MC knew that they were the kind of guys whose greatness he would never achieve. But even so, they talk about their adventures as if they were his equal friends. Yes, the protagonist also wants to become an adventurer like them. Roger said that next time they were going to go the entire 8th level. The protagonist asked, so, they have a goal? Roger confirmed it and said that they aim to conquer the Great Melba Labyrinth and to go through the deepest level. The protagonist thought about it. The deepest is the point that many adventurers strive for. Roger asked, so how many levels are in the Great Labyrinth? Nymeria answered, there is no exact information. And then she suggested that they get to the bottom of the Great Labyrinth themselves. The protagonist agreed, that's right. Then he remembered and said, actually, he also has something to tell. He handed them his parchment. They read it, and Roger was surprised. Rent created a new squad? The protagonist confirmed it. He said that he explained himself to Rink, who was abandoned by her partners back then. Roger remembered, that same girl. MC said that Rink, like him, has a unique gift, but that's why her former partners abandoned her. Roger asked again, is the protagonist's squad now called Double Deviation? Nymeria said that the name sounds good. Roger summed it up and told the protagonist, well, a new squad appeared, which means they are now rivals. Roger and Nymeria were about to leave. Rent thanked Roger for the treat. Roger waved his hand and said, yeah, let's work together from now on. They stepped aside a little. Nymeria grinned and spoke barely audibly. Roger never told Rent what he wanted. Roger grinned back at her. She heard. The protagonist created a new squad. How could he offer MC to join them? Nymeria thought about it, and really, they started to walk away from the protagonist, and Roger told her that he once had a drinking buddy. The drinking buddy made his living as a loan shark, and didn't trust anyone but himself. He made a lot of money that way, but there were people everywhere who hated him. Eventually, someone killed the loan shark. The protagonist has a similar gift. Depending on the situation, he can find someone willing to borrow more than usual. He can easily make a mistake, and Roger was afraid that this would happen soon. But now the protagonist is fine. Roger wanted to ask Nymeria something, but she wasn't there. He was surprised, turned around, and she was already standing next to Rent. She hugged the protagonist and asked if she could have another drink with him. MC apologized and said that Rinka was waiting for him at the hotel. He might accidentally wake her up if he came back too late. Nymeria was surprised. Oh, so he's into Rinka now? MC replied, no, she's just his friend. That's all. Nymeria pressed her lips to his ear and languidly asked if he wanted to have fun with her. Roger came up from behind again and patted her on the shoulder. Calm down already. Don't play with Rent's feelings. Don't force an unhealthy relationship on the protagonist. Nymeria apologized and said that she just wanted to invite the protagonist to hang out. Rent was surprised. What? Then he suddenly remembered. Right, he completely forgot. Actually, he has one request for them. Some time passed after that. It was already dark. Another carriage arrived in the city. The fairy was sitting on the wall and said, as she thought, they've been here for 3 weeks now, and they already have all the information about the debtors. The Central Information Bureau is working great. In the guild, Rinka said that the roast on the spit is very tasty. Guild food is minced meat on the inside and batter on the outside. Mapis said it was the signature dish of the guild in this city. She liked it too. Rinka replied that after researching the skills, she was starving and simply loved to eat well. Mapi ate the battered meat with gusto. Rent said that she also ate a lot. A growing body needs to eat a lot. Mapi asked Rinka if she had anything to report to Mr. Rent. Rinka took out a parchment and showed it to the protagonist. She happily shouted that she had risen in rank. Rent was happy and said that it was only in 4 days. Rinka said that her magic had grown by 24 units. She had held a grudge against her gift for a long time, but now she was sure that she could become a real adventurer. It was all thanks to him. Rent replied that until recently, he had felt the same way about his gift. Mapi said that she had something for them. It was a kind of gift. With a smile on her face, she offered to try a certain part of the dish. The most delicious part is the crust, not the filling. Rinka was surprised. Mapi said that the main part, a prelude to the crispy one. Rinka took a bite and agreed with the fairy. It was delicious. Rent thought about it. Suddenly, the table with dishes and food began to fall. An angry guy was standing nearby. Rinka shouted, "What's going on?" Guy said, "It's been a long time since we've seen each other." Rent, the protagonist, asked what he wanted. Hadn't they gone their separate ways? Guy grabbed the protagonist by the chest and said with hatred in his voice that he shouldn't be played with. Misa said that everything went downhill for them since the protagonist started stealing their magic. She blamed Rent that it was his fault. MC asked, "Steal? Wasn't that what they did themselves?" Misa was surprised. Rent said that he didn't give them magic, he lent it. They had no desire to give it up voluntarily, so he had to force them to do it. Guy called the protagonist a name. Misa looked at Rink and asked who she was. Rink said she was an adventurer and worked with Rent. Misa was surprised. Together? Guy laughed and said, "Could there really be someone who would form a party with the protagonist? After all, Rent is the last person you should even think about." Elle said it was so cute. Rink yelled that Rent was a great companion. Misa grabbed her by the throat and asked what kind of look was that? She ordered Rink to lower his eyes. Rent yelled at Misa to stop. Guy swung his arm and asked Rent if he wanted to try his strength too. At that moment, Roger came up to them and stopped them. He said that if they were going to fight, it would be better to do it outside. Misa asked what Roger was doing here. Roger bent over and was upset that good food was lying on the floor. Guy yelled that the protagonist was tormenting them with some strange spells. Roger asked again, "Spells?" Misa yelled that Rent was stealing their magic. Elle said that the protagonist was trying to get revenge for being expelled from the party. Roger asked if they were sure about that. He said that when they were traveling, they borrowed MC's magic, right? They should return what they borrowed. Guy reluctantly answered that it was possible. Misa yelled that the protagonist was doing this without their consent. Roger looked at Rent and asked, "Is that so?" Rent agreed. He said that the party was too aggressive. Roger closed his eyes and said that collecting too much magic was also a problem, and he suggested a duel as a way out of the situation. All disputes should be settled by fighting. Misa asked again, "A duel?" Roger said that he was not busy, so he would be a second. Rink asked Rent what a duel meant. Rent replied that it was a ritual in which two people settle a dispute by fighting. Guy asked if Rent had heard that there would be a duel. He said that if he wins, the protagonist will have to pay them back for all the magic he stole. MC said he agreed. He didn't care what the terms were, even if it was 3 against 1. Roger and Rent looked at each other. Roger winked. The night before, Roger asked Rent what he wanted. Rent said he wanted Roger to be his second in the duel. The duel would be with the old squad. Roger was surprised that the protagonist wanted to fight them alone. MC said that Guy and everyone else would arrive in Melba tomorrow before dawn. They would definitely find him and want to sort things out. That's when the topic of the duel would come up. They wouldn't listen to him, but if Roger got involved, their opinion would change. Roger said it was an interesting proposition. But how did the protagonist know that the squad would definitely be here? Rent said he just had a feeling. The day of the meeting, someone from the crowd shouted, "Duelists, the show promises to be interesting." Roger himself is a witness. Misa was surprised by how many onlookers had gathered. Guy replied that this was the perfect stage for a duel. He wanted to show what they were capable of. Rent thought that Roger knew how to attract people. Jin wished the protagonist good luck. He shouted that he had bet all the money he had earned in a week on him, and asked him not to disappoint him. He made a bet of 3 to 1. He decided to take a risk. Rent thought that Jin had gotten into betting again. The guild administrator asked Rent and the Sword of the Boundless Sky Squad to announce their bets on the duel. First, she asked Guy to do this on behalf of the squad. Guy shouted that if they win, the protagonist will immediately stop collecting their magic power. Then she asked Rent to voice her conditions. MC said that if he wins, he will increase the percentage rate on the magic he collects. Guy was surprised. A bet? Rent explained that the current rate is 8% for 10 days. He will raise it to 10%. The loan for magic power will be closed monthly. Someone in the crowd asked what kind of strange talk, and received the answer that something related to magic. Rent continued that from tomorrow, he will receive another 90,000 magic power, plus an interest rate of 10%. Misa was surprised. What kind of interest rate? Was the reason for this only because of the borrowed magic? Rent answered that it was exactly that. He collects interest every day. This is his collection. Mandatory payments. Guy said that it was enough chatter and called the protagonist names. He said that MC will die anyway. Today is his last day. The administrator said that if there are no objections, both opponents must take an oath. Rent and Guy put their hands on the piece of paper on which the oath was written and said that they swear to obey the results of this sacred duel. Roger said that he was a member of the Meteor Shower Squad, the second of this duel. Rinka stood aside and worried. Nymeria told her that she looked worried. She asked Rinka about this being her first time witnessing such an action. An oath given in a duel is unbreakable. It is not just a promise, and if you break it, there will be serious consequences. Nymeria clarified that this was Rinka from Rent's squad. Rinka said and asked how Nymeria knew her. Nymeria said that she was with Rent last night. Rinka replied that she heard about it. Did they drink together last night? Nymeria said that the protagonist was amazing. They hadn't had this much fun in a long time. Rinka got angry and asked Nymeria about how they were just drinking together, right? Nymeria laughed and said she was just joking. She said that Rinka knew Rent better than she did, and he wasn't the type to do that. They just had to trust Rent. He would definitely win. Moppy appeared on Rinka's head and said that she also had something to say. She said that Mr. Rent would never lose. Roger raised his hand and gave the signal that the duel had begun. The Sky Sword Squad opened the bottles of potion and began to drink it. Someone in the crowd of onlookers asked what they were doing. An old man in the crowd asked if they were taking a recovery potion. A guy in the crowd said that the duel had just begun. Misa and Guy noticed that Elle was also drinking the potion and were very surprised. Elle replied that if they finished with this protagonist, then she was ready to be patient. Rent said that he would wait until the party got drunk and did not rush them. Guy called the protagonist's names again and asked if he was trying to make fun of him. Rent thought that the party still relied on their magic. MC remembered that they made him take a recovery potion when he ran out of magic. They offered to recover with the help of a potion and give him his magic power when it appeared. He threw up from the potion then too. It was hard at that time. Jean asked Rent why he was standing. The duel had already begun. Guy attacked the protagonist first. An explosive impact occurred immediately. A large cloud of dust rose into the air. Nothing was visible. The protagonist's piggy bank rolled out of the dust cloud and lay on the ground. Rinka gasped loudly. Jin did not expect such a quick fight. The guys he placed his bet with said he would have to pay it back with interest. Guy smiled proudly. He approached Misa and said he had slapped him with one blow. Misa said he had taken his opponent too seriously. Guy said Elle's support magic had worked well. Elle had praised herself. Guy said they had overdone it a bit. Guy asked Roger if he had seen that blow, and added that their squad was incredibly cool. Roger watched and remained silent. Guy asked what that expression was about. Magic power was coming out of the lying piggy bank. Misa shouted at Guy to turn around. A fireball flew out of the dust cloud. Misa had managed to use a magic shield. Comet asked who would dare to interfere in a duel with Roger? Stupid man. Misa and Guy peered closely at the dust and couldn't believe their eyes. It was Rent. Misa shouted, "He's still alive." But how? Rent had launched a fire tornado. The protagonist walked closer to the opponents and slashed at Miss with his blade. She fell, and Guy was left standing alone. Rent picked up his piggy bank from the ground. Guy ordered Elle to get Misa back on her feet, quickly. A fireball flew towards Guy, triple. The crowd of onlookers were chatting about the protagonist using 3 spells at once. Is that even possible? Someone said that this was a higher level of magic than a regular fireball. Comet screamed that Rent used magic non-stop. She can't do that. Look, Guy asked how Rent did it. Guy knew he wasn't in the best shape, but that just couldn't be. How was it that the protagonist was unharmed? What happened? How? Moppy screamed that Rent was amazing. Rinka wondered if it was because of the power of the infinite magic storage that he was unharmed. Moppy smiled and said no. It was because of hard work. The night before the duel, Rent looked at the parchment and was happy that they had finally saved up 150,000 units. The protagonist decided that he would choose creditor protection. A new skill, creditor protection, was purchased. From now on, this skill will always be active. Moppy said that with this skill, the outcome of tomorrow's duel is a foregone conclusion. She knew that it took them a long time, but this skill will come in handy in the future. Even if the debtor gets angry and attacks, he will be able to use this skill to protect himself. The effect of the skill is to nullify all of the debtor's attacks up to a certain level of damage. The amount of damage nullified is proportional to the debtor's payment. Then Rent used a vacuum strike. He himself was very surprised. He realized that Guy's sword was made of mithril, but it was falling apart. Guy, in desperation, screamed that Rent owed them millions. Moppy was glad that with this skill, no one would be able to even scratch Mr. Rent. The protagonist thought that the enemy squad's priority was restoring strength. Perhaps that's why there was not enough money for repair fluid. Guy swung to strike, but Rent blocked it with his blade. Guy's sword blade bounced up. The crowd rejoiced with joy that the blade broke. Fuga caught the flying sword blade with one hand. He wondered if he could sell it. Guy stood with the sword handle in his hand, and the girls sat exhausted on the side. Guy screamed in helplessness. He said that he would never lose to the protagonist. Rent extended the piggy bank forward, and Guy flew away from a powerful energy wave. The crowd said that it seems there's a winner. Someone said about Rent that he is cool. Comet screamed that this was impossible and unthinkable. Guy was lying on the ground, exhausted, making strange sounds. Rent approached him and offered to give him his magic. His eyes were shining with hatred. He didn't look like himself. Guy begged him to wait. He moaned that he had used everything up on his skills. Rent kicked him. Rinka didn't recognize Rent. The protagonist rudely told Guy to shut up. This is reality. He held the blade up to Guy's face and said that if he thought about it, he had 3 fresh souls. He didn't know how much they would cost. But maybe this price would pay off their debt a little. If that happened, then Guy's soul would leave the circle of reincarnation and wander in the eternal cold void. However, this was no longer his business. Guy begged him to stop. Rent's eyes were burning with hatred and there was an unnatural smile on his face. He took his piggy bank and shook it. He had already saved up enough. But is this amount enough for him? Of course not. He wants more. He told his item to look away. They have everything. The traders were sitting at the table in his thoughts, counting the gold they had earned. Rent ran up to them and, grabbing the bags, shouted for them to give him everything. All their coins were his. Rage and resentment were consuming him more and more. But Rinka was able to shout to him. She hugged him from behind and, bursting into tears, said that everything was fine. He had already won. Now he just needed to calm down. Rent looked around the arena field and saw burnt crackers. Roger shouted that the duel was over. The winner was Rent. He approached him and was surprised. It was simply magnificent. He thought that the protagonist would try something more subtle for an attack, but this would do too. He was simply merciless. Nymeria was worried about him. He even gave her goosebumps. Rent didn't understand anything at all and his friends started asking what happened. But he himself doesn't know. It's like he's completely lost his memory from that moment. The adventurers expressed their admiration for him. He looked like a real demon. At the end of the battle, his horde of fireballs fried those idiots in the blink of an eye. Rent couldn't believe it. Did he really do that? Roger asked him not to worry about it. They were alive, just with a crispy crust. The guild representatives would take care of them. Nymeria said that in any case, Roger could and would end this fight early. Poor Rinka even cried. He replied, she herself knows what he hates the most. Idiots who do such terrible things to those they themselves betrayed. They fully deserved it. The protagonist approached Roger, who explained to MC, the reason for the protagonist's memory loss during the duel must be because he got so angry that he lost control of himself. The protagonist again remembered how Guy mocked him and answered Roger, maybe that's true. Suddenly, Comet ran up and threw herself on Rent's neck. The protagonist was surprised. Comet? She demanded to teach her how to cast fireballs like that. She had never seen anything like that before. Rent tried to explain to her that this was only possible with his blow. Comet didn't want to listen. There's nothing impossible for her. Roger told her that the protagonist was already in trouble and asked Comet not to escalate. Meanwhile, the defeated duelists were lying on the ground. The healers from the guild approached them. The head healer doused them with something from a bucket. Guy said that he was in pain. The healer told him that it was a potion for wounds, but it was a cheap potion and full of filth. Guy screamed that he was a wounded man. They should be careful with him. The healer said that Guy was just a pain in the ass. That's who. That's why they save on such duelists. They deserved it. The trio was outraged by this. Rent approached them. He said that MC won the duel, and according to the agreement, he raises the rate to 10%. Guy indignantly turned to the protagonist. Are you kidding? He decided that the protagonist still didn't understand anything. Misa was also indignant and asked why they should pay the protagonist more than they had already spent. A bolt of lightning flew into the forehead of all 3 of them. They writhed in pain. The guild manager said that the oath in a duel is unbreakable. Roger supported her and said that if anyone refused, their life would be at stake. And he asked Guy if he understood. Guy replied that he understood everything. The protagonist immediately created an extension of the contract. The 3 defeated obeyed. Rent explained to them. As he had already said before the duel, tomorrow would be the 7th month. He would be able to take back the 90,000 that MC lent Guy. But it would still not be enough. So according to this contract, they have 10 days to return 153,139 units with interest. Even if the 3 of them restored their magic with the bracelets, they would still need about 38,000. Guy was surprised. What? Rent said that they need to drink potions or something to make up for the shortfall. Elle asked again, make up for it? She said that they barely had any money. Guy was outraged and yelled at the protagonist. What was he talking about? MC calmly continued and said that they would have to drink about 77 bottles. He thought they could afford it. Guy was outraged. Potions don't grow on trees. Misa smirked and asked what would happen if they couldn't pay back. Rent calmly replied, then they were finished. The protagonist wasn't the one to give them advice. They were in debt and couldn't even harm him, their creditor. It was all thanks to the protagonist's skills. Guy remarked angrily, so that's why Rent didn't even flinch from his attacks. The protagonist concluded, so, for the next 10 days, the debtors should do everything they could to pay him back. The defeated ones sat on their knees in silence. Then Guy turned to Rent and said angrily, this is not the end. After some time, Rent and his friends were sitting at the bar and celebrating his victory, to the bottom. Jean patted the protagonist on the shoulder and said that thanks to him, he became rich. Thanks, kid. The protagonist replied, please. I wonder what Jean will do to him if he loses? The bar shouted congratulations to Rent. The protagonists turned around and saw that they were the guys from the two-headed Silver Wolf squad. Sinistra said that they hadn't seen each other for a long time. The protagonist was surprised, did not know that they were in Melba. She confirmed, yeah, they came here on a mission. Actually, they were in the same carriage with his duelists. The protagonist was surprised again. What a coincidence. Destra said that the duelists were like the rumors said. Sinistra confirmed his words. Rude. Destra agreed with her. Yes, that's right. Never seen B-rank adventurers fight so badly against orcs before. The protagonist was surprised, really. Sinistra asked cheerfully, Rent won, right? She would like to see that. Shannon supported her and said that she wouldn't mind too. The protagonist thought, these guys hate defeated duelists too much. Jin called out to the protagonist, hey kid, Rent is the star of the show this time, and everyone needs his victory speech. The protagonist walked to the center of the room and started his speech saying, he was expelled from his previous party. He despaired. He thought it was all over, but fate blessed him with loyal friends. He was able to start all over again as an adventurer. And from now on, he hopes for their support and understanding. One of the adventurers supported him. Well said. He hopes that they will become friends. Another told the protagonist not to be afraid of those duelists anymore. Roger and Nymeria stood aside. Roger told her that Rent was funny. Nymeria responded just like her. Comet yelled at the protagonist to teach her his magic. Fuga tried to calm her down and asked her to be quiet. Rent and Rinka exchanged glances. When it got dark and everyone left, they sat together at the table. Rent thanked her for everything. The fairy told Rinka. She said that the master would definitely win. Rinka agreed with her. Yeah. Moppy said that the defeated must have lost their pride after losing in front of the whole guild. Rent replied that he hoped so. Rinka told him that he was great. But she was a little scared. He apologized to her for making her worry. Suddenly Rinka remembered that after the fight, the protagonist said that he lost his memory. He confirmed her words. Roger explained to him, MC was just so angry that he lost his mind. But now when he thinks about it, he doesn't think that it was like that. At that moment, he was overcome by another emotion than anger. He doesn't even understand, as if another personality, full of malice, had entered him. Rinka was surprised. Malice? The protagonist couldn't sleep that night. He remembered how Rinka fought monsters like a butcher without stopping. He told her, great job. She replied that it wasn't over yet, and that she had become stronger. Rinka had a clouded look then, and he barely brought her out of that state with his shout. The protagonist was sitting on the bed. The fairy asked him, sir, did something happen? He replied that he remembered something here. Moppy asked, that fit of rage? He confirmed, yeah. She also remembered how Rinka destroyed a horde of goblins. She fought in the same way, having lost her mind. Maybe their unique abilities are very dangerous. The fairy asked him not to worry. It all depends on how they use it. And then there's her, Moppy. She looked at the protagonist and said that he looked scared. The protagonist was indignant. Not at all. Moppy laughed, oh, how loudly. Rent heard sobbing behind the door. He looked out and asked who was there. He was surprised, Rinka. She apologized to him for disturbing him so late. Rinka told him that she had nightmares every night. He was surprised. Really. She said that thanks to him, she feels like she's growing up every day. But that time when the skeleton broke her sword, she can't get it out of her head. MC told her that today he ended the fears of the past in his own way. He realized something from the behavior of his past comrades. They clearly don't want to give back magic. So in 10 days, it will all be over. Now it was his turn to help with Rinka's fear. She must defeat him, that skeleton. Next morning, Rinka admired the flowers. The girl who was watching the flowers told her that Melba is a city where people from all over the world come. You can buy seeds of all kinds of flowers here. Rinka sniffed the flowers. They were Gremolata and Morning Glory Melba. The girl told her that Gremolata blooms in the morning and Morning Glory Melba only in the evening. Rinka knew that, so they divide the clubs depending on the time of day when the flowers bloom. The girl was surprised and said, it's great that Rinka knows that. She asked how Rinka figured that out. Where did she get so much knowledge? Their conversation was interrupted by the protagonist. He apologized to Rinka for making her wait. It took him a long time to equip himself. The fairy was counting. Armor 300,000 gold. Sleeveless coat 150,000 gold. Travel boots 35,000 gold. It came out to 485,000 gold. The protagonist asked Rinka, by the way, doesn't she need new armor? She answered, well, yes. She's tried everything, but this armor seems the most comfortable. The protagonist understood everything. Suddenly, a girl appeared and asked Rink, sister, are you looking for armor? Rink was surprised, looked at her, huh? Yes. The girl called her sister again and asked, is she a samurai? Rink was surprised by the question, a samurai? The girl grabbed Rinka by the hand and told her to come to her store. She pulled him in and said, "The store has all kinds of goods that are perfect for Rink." The protagonist couldn't keep up with them. Wait, the girl who was looking after the flowers said that Suzu was as active as always. They came to the Yagyu store. The protagonist's mouth dropped. Wow, I've never seen anything like this. The girl greeted them happily. "Welcome to the Yagyu store. This store deals with goods related to the Far East." The protagonist was surprised. "Oh, the Far East. This is the first time I've seen this." Suzu put on the helmet and asked Rink, "What do you think of this helmet, sister?" It was worn by the shogun himself, the highest-ranking samurai. Rinka put it on herself and said, "It's a bit heavy." It fell off her head. Suzu screamed, "Ah, her tanuki." Something fell off and Rinka apologized. "Sorry." The girl said, "It's fine. They have another one like this in the store." The protagonist was surprised. "Really?" Suzu offered them something. "What about this? If used during battle, it can make the enemy lose the will to fight." The protagonist was surprised again, somehow strange. Suzu showed something else, dumplings that subjugate the enemy who ate it. The protagonist was horrified. Horror. He thought this place reeked of danger. MC thanked her and said that they would go. Suzu grabbed him by the lapel. No way, she would not let them go without a purchase. She showed a mask and asked, "How about this? If you put on the mask, the wearer will dance the best at the party." The protagonist called Rinka and asked her to leave quickly. Rinka stood by the canvas and looked at it, fascinated. The protagonist called her, but she did not respond. She looked at the kimono, how beautiful it was. A man came out and explained, "Havut hand-painted, specifically with blood. The fabric is thin, but if you pass magic through it, it will become good armor." Rinka whispered, "Kimono." The man greeted the guests, "Welcome. They haven't had clients for a long time." Suzu praised herself. She brought clients. The man was indignant. Did she use force again? The girl answered, "Well, okay," and said that he, unlike Suzu, does nothing at all. The man turned to Rinka and called her a young lady. He said that he saw Rinka had a katana sword. Rinka was a samurai? Rinka answered confusedly, "No." The protagonist asked, "Who are samurai?" The man was surprised. "They don't know?" He explained that samurai are warriors from the Far East. They fight in close combat, chopping their opponents with katanas. The equipment they prefer to wear is called a kimono, which they see here. He said that he fell in love with the beauty of the kimono at one time and brought it here. Rinka was confused. A samurai? Maybe it was similar to her fighting style. The protagonist happily asked Rinka if she thought it would suit her equipment. Rinka answered, "Maybe." She asked the seller how much it cost. It seemed expensive. The man answered at a rough estimate, 2.5 million. Rinka was stunned by the price, 2.5 million. Suzu shouted towards the man, "That's why no one buys our goods." The man stopped her and said that he could lower the price if it were simple fabrics. But it's not that simple. The girl was indignant and said that they would not survive with such a kink on his part. Rinka apologized to Rent and said that they could not afford it. The protagonist asked the man if the armor really costs that much. The man answered, "Naturally, it's the best fabric you can find. He guarantees quality." Rent smiled, pulled out a bag of gold and said, "He'll take it." Rinka was scared. "Rent?" The protagonist answered her calmly. He decided that she would wear the best armor. It's a small price for such a thing. Rinka was indignant, but such a sum is huge. MC calmed her down. Even if they needed money, they could always return to the dungeon and earn it. And the way she looked at the kimono, it was love at first sight. Rinka was happy. "Ah, Rent." Suzu jumped up to the protagonist and put a mask on him, saying that he was their most respected client, and this mask was a gift. The man asked the young lady to follow him. Rinka obeyed. "I'm coming." They went out into the yard. The man gave her a wooden sword. Rinka asked, "What are they going to do now?" He said that he hadn't received such orders for a long time. He wants to have a sparring match. This way he can adjust the kimono to her needs and movements. She said that everything is clear to her, although strange. The protagonist asked Suzu if her father is strong. Suzu confirmed it. At least he enjoys it. The protagonist wondered if Rinka would be okay. Until now, she had only fought monsters. Fighting a human could be an incentive for her. The man pulled out a wooden sword, so here we go. Everyone froze in anticipation. The man rushed to attack. Rinka parried. He attacked again, and she parried. The protagonist watched what was happening and told Suzu that her father was really good. Suzu said that his little sister is not bad either. The man continued to attack. He asked the young lady not to hold back and show herself. Rinka went on the attack. The man parried and thought she was fast enough, but she still had not shown her full glory, and he decided to attack her with even more force. Rinka parried this attack as well. A thought flashed through her mind. Kill. The man understood it from her gaze. The protagonist realized that Rink had the same gaze as then. The man saw that Rink had started her attack, but he was stronger, used a counterattack with maximum effort, and knocked the sword out of Rink's hands. Everyone was surprised. Rink was surprised that she lost now. The man apologized to her for being so rude. The old man said that if they continued in the same spirit, then the battle would have become to the death. Rink thought about it and asked for forgiveness. The old man said that there was no need to worry about it. It was a beautiful battle. He asked Rink what her gift was. Rink said that her gift was called the Way of the Assura. The old man repeated, Assura, a gift named after a deity. He said that he never introduced himself. He was a representative of the 21st generation of the Yagyu clan. His name is Lindo. He asked what the name of the young lady was. She said, Rinka. Lindo said that after thinking about everything, he wanted to show her a product that would be perfect for her. Rinka thanked him for this. In Lindo's house, there were beautiful fabric scraps on the shelves. Lindo asked what patterns she preferred. Rinka answered, flowers. She asked if there were any floral patterns in the shop, but not too feminine and delicate. Lindo asked for time to think. He showed the fabric and asked how about this pattern, a fiery red floral pattern. In the language of flowers, it means courage. Rinka was surprised. Suzu took Rinka's measurements and called her strong. She said she had never seen her dad put in such effort. Rinka said that Lindo looked like a master swordsman. She asked if he used to be a swordsman. Suzu answered that it was his hobby. When he was young, he became an apprentice to a kimono maker, and at the same time he trained in the dojo of the warriors who wore his works. That is where his mastery of combat comes from. As for his gift, it is fire magic. Her father once told her that it is useful for making fires. Rinka replied that she understood. Suzu said that there were 5 years left until her coming-of-age ceremony. She was very curious about what gift she would receive. She would like a gift related to trade. Somewhere in the city, Rent and Rinka were walking along the streets of the city. The protagonist said that everything would be ready the day after tomorrow. Rinka replied that she could not wait. Rent asked if Rinka liked flowers. He noticed that when she was choosing fabrics, she especially reacted to flowers. She also often chatted with others about different flower beds. Rinka smiled and said that when she was a child, she wanted to become a florist. There was a wonderful flower shop in her hometown. Flowers always cheered her up. She thought that one day she would be able to make customers happy, that she would make people happy with beautiful flowers. But during the coming-of-age ceremony, she had to give up her dream. She understands that people do not always get the gift they want, and that she could follow her dream without paying attention to the gift. But the voice in her heart always tells her that she must fight. Kill. Kill the enemy. She tried to ignore this voice, but it began to hurt her head. The protagonist was surprised. Rinka said that this gift brought her not only pain, but also joy. She learned this from him. Rinka admitted that she was afraid to fight her old enemy, the Irregular, but she knew that she had to do it. That is why she will not run away anymore. This is her destiny and she must follow it. Rent agreed with her words. He said that he is a true creditor and will follow her even to the ends of the earth until she repays the debt. Somewhere in a bar, a bag of gold was thrown on the table. 2 people were sitting at the table, a young muscular guy in a vest with a mohawk on his head and a muscular elf with a middle-aged beard. The young guy asked what they wanted. In front of him stood 2 people in hooded capes. One of them said that he wanted the guy and his friend to kill someone for them. There were 100,000 gold coins in the bag as an advance payment. The man in the cape turned out to be Guy. He said that the reward for the murder would be later, and it would be 10 million. The guy asked who the lucky guy was that needed to be killed. The second customer in the cape turned out to be Misa. She answered that Rent from the Double Deviation Squad needed to be killed. She described the victim and said that he had a dirty piggy bank dangling from his belt. She called him a feeble-minded person. The guy said that this was the guy who had defeated 3 B-rank adventurers the other day. He asked his partner to remind him who the guy had defeated. He thought for a bit and said that the losers from the Sword of the Boundless Sky. Guy started to get angry. Misa tried to stop him. The muscular bearded man said that those 2 were too famous, in a bad way. He said that even though they do dirty work, they are not stupid enough to feud with the meteor shower. This squad is behind that guy. Misa grabbed a bag of gold and called the bandits a bunch of weaklings. She said that they will find someone else. The young guy grabbed the bag of gold at the last moment and said that this is the fee for canceling their services. He said to leave the bag. Misa tried to protest. The bearded man asked, or should they tell everyone about this order? The bearded man picked up the bag and shouted loudly to the whole bar that the Sword of the Boundless Sky Squad wants to take revenge with their hands. For only 100,000 gold. The other bandits were surprised. They asked about the revenge for the duel and called the adventurers pathetic. They said that it was better to give up this stupid idea. After all, the adventurers are already at rock bottom. Misa called Guy to leave. Somewhere in the inn, Guy was kicking chairs and screaming that those bandits were making fun of them. He was calling them names. Not only did the bandits not do what they asked, they also took their money. He clenched his fist and said that in the past, they would have just beaten them up. Misa said that they couldn't afford it now. Elle asked what they should do. That money was all they had. She burst into tears and said that they couldn't even rent this room anymore. Guy said that they would have to earn money in the dungeon. Misa said that they had already sold all their weapons and armor. Guy said that then they would hunt goblins. He looked at his hand and asked if he should sell the bracelets. Misa said no, with the bracelets they could get 3,000 units of magic. Guy said that they needed money now, and those bracelets were the rarest item in the world, and if they were sold, they could buy hundreds of potions. Somewhere in the shop. The appraiser looked at the bracelet and said 6,000 gold. The squad froze from the words. Guy pounced on the appraiser and shouted, "Is he blind?" The appraiser said that it was just a bracelet. Guy shouted that one such bracelet could replenish 1,000 units. Does he understand or not? The appraiser calmly said that he thought it was a fantasy. Guy called the appraiser names and demanded that the bracelet be returned. Elle whined that she was hungry. There were 8 days left until the payment deadline. Yagyu's shop. Rent was holding a doll in a kimono. Suzu asked him to look at his sister's new outfit. Rent was surprised and couldn't say anything. Rinka asked if the outfit suited her. Rent replied that it suited her perfectly. Lindo thought, "What a curious look," he asked. "Did it turn out well? This outfit does not restrict movement in battle." He chose a scarlet kimono. It is thin and light, but durable. And the bottom part of the outfit is called hakama. It is always more subdued in color. The fabric is infused with mithril powder, so it conducts magic well. Hakama may seem heavy, but it is made so that you can move easily in them. Lindo asked if Rink liked the outfit. She answered with a smile on her face, "Yes." Rink suggested that the protagonist quickly go to the dungeon, the Great Melba Labyrinth, 3rd floor. Rink bravely fought the skeletons. She confidently cut off their skulls with her new sword. Moppy said that he could relax on this floor. Rent was watching Rink. The fairy asked Rent and Rink to help her collect magic stones. They walked through the dungeon with a bag of stones. They entered the rooms where the Irregular was. Moppy looked around, and the protagonist looked behind Rink. He showed that in the distance, there was an entrance to the 4th floor. He was sure that the monster was waiting for them there. Rink was worried. Rent suggested going, and she agreed. 4th floor. Castle of Sorrow. Rent said that here they were. He suggested going further. They walked side by side, and a whole army of skeletons came out to meet them. Rent said that it was an army of the dead, and they were moving towards them. The protagonist said that he had bought new skills for such an occasion. He used Enhancement Magic Level 1. The purchase price is 1,000 units. Increased agility, increased attack power, increased defense. Rinka felt a surge of new strength. She said that she would deal with the dead from the first to the last. She proudly took out her sword and said that it would cut and destroy. Such is the way of the assura. Rinka deftly wielded the sword. Rent said that it was clean work. He would also try out his new skills. The protagonist cast Wind Cutter, Wind Magic Level 1. The purchase price is 1,000 units. The air swirled and the dead began to fall one after another. The dead were watching the protagonist's movements as if enchanted. Particles of magic were flying in the air. Then, Rent used a water stream, Water Magic Level 1. Purchase price 1,000 units. The dead began to be washed away by a stormy stream of water, and Rinka stood in the center of the whirlpool. Rent took out his dagger and began an attack on the enemy. After some time, heaps of defeated dead lay around. Rent called out to his partner Rinka. She replied that she was fine. He was very happy to hear these words, but very soon, Rinka noticed new dead in front of her, and behind them stood a huge skeleton. She was a little confused, meeting him again. But Rent came up to her, put his hand on her shoulder and said that everything would be fine. He was with her. Rinka said that she would have a lot of problems with these guys around. The protagonist replied that he would take care of them. Rent used Provocation. Level 1 Energy Boost. Purchase price 5,000 units. He confidently looked at the monsters that attacked him. He crouched and touched the ground, and then used Earth Cocoon. Earth Magic First Level. Purchase price 1,000 units. The ground seemed to open up. Huge boulders began to rise up, carrying monsters with them and crushing them. Rent jokingly apologized and said that today she was the star of the show. Rinka confidently took a fighting stance and prepared to attack. She prepared for this day and trained a lot. Blow after blow, she dealt the enemy, not giving him time to come to his senses. She was no longer the same as before. She had changed a lot. Rent stood aside and rejoiced, watching the battle unfold. Rinka cut off the monster's hand with a sword. She noticed that he threw away his shield and thought. The monster rushed to attack with double the force. Instead of hands, he had 2 huge swords. Rinka realized that the monster was angry. He hit her in the stomach and she fell. When the protagonist asked if she was okay, she replied that her kimono protected her. She stood up and said that she would deal with the enemy from the first to the last blow. Her sword would cut and destroy. She persuaded herself to take a step along the path of assura. Childhood memories. One of the guys asked what gift she had received. Many were surprised that it was the path of assura. Someone admired that she had an SSS rank. Then Rinka asked the guys to stop because she did not want this. Then she remembered the meeting with the squad, when they did not believe that she had such a unique skill. and they often repeated that she should pull herself together. She asked them to stop doing this, because she also had hopes and was experiencing difficulties. She remembered the words of humiliation, that if she were not here, her comrades could be stronger. She did not understand what her fault was, that her friends were so weak. They used her and ran away. She couldn't take it anymore, and she decided to put an end to it. Rent was sure of her victory. After all, the new armor, the strengthening magic he cast, her new sword were the perfect conditions for victory. The skeleton couldn't do anything. Rinka desperately swung her sword. Rent watched the duel carefully. The speed of the blows was high, and the blows were accurate. The skeleton was flying apart. Rent remembered the conversation with Lindo, the store owner. Lindo asked what kind of person Rinka was. After all, her gift is the path of the assura, and that means an immense desire to kill, which manifests itself during battle. He didn't know if Rinka realized it, but at such moments she needs control so as not to turn into a monster. Her future depends entirely on the protagonist. Rent agreed with these words. In the labyrinth, Rinka desperately swung her sword and shouted, "Die!" representing the former squad and shouting again, "Die! Die!" She approached the protagonist and wanted to hit him, but he stopped her and shouted her name. She came to her senses and her eyes changed color. Rent said that it was all over. She saved him the other day and this was his retribution. Rinka said that there was a strange feeling, as if it was not her. Rent replied that no matter who the opponent was, he would not let her forget her true self. Mabi congratulated Rinka and said that she finally defeated the knuckle. She asked, "Where's the joy on the friends' faces?" Rinka replied that she felt the anger that Rent felt too. Her feelings were confused. Anger completely took over her body. Rent said that he felt the same during the duel. He was overcome with the desire to take away not only the magical powers from the debtors, but everything else as well. The fairy was silent but thought about something. Then she said that it was time to tell about the meaning of SSS rank gifts. Rinka was surprised. Rent asked what Mapi was talking about. The fairy explained that using powerful skills, a truly powerful gift, is not such a simple thing. The SSS rank means the stigma of the 7 deadly sins. These are pride, greed, wrath, envy, lust, gluttony, and sloth. A gift that embodies the sins inherent in humans. This is what makes it SSS rank. Rent repeated, "Sins?" Mabi said that Rent is subject to greed, the desire to take everything and leave the enemy with nothing. And Rink's sin is anger, the desire to give in to rage and destroy everything. Recently, they both felt the true nature of their gifts. Rent was outraged. Why didn't she tell him about this earlier? Mapi replied that instead of explaining it with words, it was better to feel it for yourself. She asked that they not let the sins consume them next time. Rinka asked why God gave them such powers. The fairy replied, "Who knows? Yggdrasil's thoughts are impossible for a little fairy like her to understand." Rent asked, "Yggdrasil?" Mapi replied that she had enough questions for today. After fighting a strong enemy, their bodies and minds were exhausted. She suggested they go home. Rent called out to her and asked if she was on their side. "Right?" Mapi smiled sweetly and asked what they were talking about. She was a support fairy who guided her master. In the city. The girl at the reception handed a bag of gold to the sword of the Boundless Sky Squad. She said that it was a great job. In total, it came to 50,000 gold. The squad purchased bottles of potion. There are 5 days left until the debt is repaid. Their debt is 2,678,078. They have 86,132 out of 153,139. The deficit is 38,059. Misa said that she thought everything was prepared. Guy replied that he was exhausted from hunting every day. Misa tried to count everything. 1 bottle replenishes 500 units. They have 77 bottles multiplied by 500 is 38,500. They need to drink 5 bottles per person per day. But they still don't have enough. Elle said that she can't do that. Misa told her sternly that she used to drink a lot and never complain. Elle was indignant and said that this was different. Didn't she understand? Misa replied that she didn't care. Tomorrow they would start drinking 10 bottles. Misa emphasized that they would not help her with this. Guy told Elle to stop being capricious and just drink. Elle jumped up from the table and screamed no. Guy asked where she was going. To the guild. Elle was running among the people, and Guy and Misa were trying to stop her. The girl at the reception asked how she could help. Elle screamed that she had had enough. She was leaving the squad. She asked that if she left, her debt would be forgiven. Guy was indignant. Misa asked Elle how she could do that. Misa shouted that she was leaving too. The girl clarified that the girls wanted to leave the squad. They answered in unison, "Yes." The girl replied that if they both left, the squad would naturally disband. The girls shouted that they agreed. Guy tried to stop them. He said that they had reached rank B. You can't just destroy everything. Misa suggested that if the group disbanded, then maybe their debt to magic would disappear. Guy tried to find the words. He said that they had been together for 5 years. The girl at the reception wrote out the papers and gave them to the girls. They began to carefully study their parchments. Guy shouted at the guild administrator to cancel the disbandment. She replied that she had already completed the procedure. The squad was disbanded. Misa looked at the parchment in horror and could not believe her eyes. Borrowed magic was written in large letters. Misa cursed. The debt is attached to an individual. They can't avoid paying it off. There are 4 days left until the debt is repaid. The girls are sitting at the table and drinking a potion to restore magic. There are 3 days left until the debt is repaid. Misa's banging her head against the wall. Elle hid under the blanket. There are 2 days left until the debt is repaid. Guy is wandering the streets of the city alone with a bottle of potion in his hand. He passed by a group of guys. One of them asked another if this was a former swordsman from some sword or other. Another replied that he had heard information that the squad had quarreled and was disbanded. The third guy said that this guy was completely defeated in a duel. He was definitely finished. Guy heard all this and threw the bottle at one of them out of anger. He said that this was not the end and that he could still do anything. The guys got angry at Guy and all 3 started kicking him. One of them said that he was going to get it now. There was 1 day left until the debt was repaid. Rent, Moppy and Rinka were sitting in a tavern and eating. The protagonist looked at the parchment and said that it looked like the party would not be able to repay the debt. Moppy was chewing meat and said that it was true. Rinka asked what would happen if they didn't make it in time. Would they really die? Rent replied that he didn't want to let things get that way. Moppy said that she didn't want that either. If they died, they wouldn't be able to repay the debt. Rinka became very sad. The protagonist told her not to worry. Even if their powers were terrible, his gift of infinite magic storage was meant to help. When he helped her grow up, he leveled up himself, and he won't become a greedy person who drives others to their deaths. He took a sip of beer, and Rinka exhaled. The protagonist covered his mouth and apologized to her. He said that he thought he had drunk too much and needed to breathe a little. Rinka noticed that Rent had been drinking a lot more since the day they met. She was worried about him. He was sitting outside and looking at the sky. He asked himself, the 7 sins? Somewhere in this world, there were 5 more SSS-ranked gift holders. Maybe they also had problems with their powers. A voice said hello from behind. It was Misa. She said that they hadn't seen each other for a long time. Rent was very surprised. Misa told him not to be so careful, because she couldn't hurt him anyway. Rent asked what she wanted. Misa cried and apologized for everything, for calling him a weakling and for kicking him out of the squad. The protagonist asked where Guy and Elle were. Weren't they together? Misa was surprised. MC asked that she was trying to save only herself. Misa fell silent. Rent said that she hadn't changed a bit. It was too late. He said he didn't want an apology, he wanted the debt back. It's almost midnight. If she doesn't pay back the debt soon, she'll be in big trouble. Misa grabbed his hand and asked him to wait. Rent shouted at her to let him go. Misa kissed the protagonist on the lips with tongue. Rent pushed her away and sternly said, "Enough." He wiped his lips. Misa asked if he remembered how they rode in a carriage from the village. She still regretted not answering then. She didn't have the courage. She burst into tears again and said that she was very sorry. Suddenly she said that she loved him. So she asked him again to join her on a new adventure. She asked if Rent agreed. In the tavern, Rinka was nervous that Rent was late. Moppy said that maybe he drank too much and fell somewhere. Rinka got even more nervous and said she would go and see. She went outside and started calling him. Coming out from around the corner, she saw Rent and Misa. She grabbed her sword and shouted for the sorceress to get away from Rent. In response, Misa took out her magic wand and put Rinka in magical bonds. Rent asked where Misa got magic from. She answered that wands themselves contain magic. She didn't know that such useful tools were sold. Only they were disposable. Misa ordered Rent not to move. If he didn't remove the mark from her right now, she would smash Rinka to smithereens with her most powerful spell. She was ready to bet that Rinka wouldn't be able to stand it. She couldn't understand why she liked him. She regretted that they even accepted him into the party. He was good for nothing. The stricter he acts, the more the others hate him. Rent asked what if he acts decently. Misa said the conditions would make him a strong person, like they made her. Rent said, but he didn't want that to happen again. He confidently took a step toward Misa. She screamed that she told him not to move. Rent and Rinka looked at each other. Rinka shouted, "Do it." Rinka wanted to bet that Misa couldn't hurt her. Misa was surprised. She held out her wand and said, "As you say, prepare to die." She used a fire tornado. The whirlwind swirled and disappeared. Rent said that the day had changed. It was over. The city was sleeping peacefully under the bright moonlight, but one flower was waiting for the moonlight to bloom and release pollen to the wind. Misa didn't understand why the wand didn't work. The binding chains fell off Rinka's body. Misa repeated the movement of the wand over and over again, but all in vain. Rinka pulled out her sword and cut the wand. Misa asked why. Where is her magic? The protagonist advised to check her status. Misa pulled out the parchment and looked at the notes. It said Misa is an intermediate level mage. Her MP was at 0. Adventurer rank B. Squad dash. Skills dash. Misa said that her skills were gone. Magic Operation 550, Fire Magic 1010, Magic Acceptance 550. Rent said that he had converted all her skills into magic power, but it would still not be enough, so her gift was also used. Misa said no way. Rent answered sharply that there would be no mercy for debtors. He would expect the same payment in 10 days. Misa knelt down and did not understand. What should she do now? Suddenly she heard someone's voice. It was a pity that she had to go through this. Misa asked, "Who is here?" Mapi showed herself to Misa. She said, "It was nice to meet you." Misa was scared and screamed, "Fairy!" She closed her eyes. Mapi said that she was probably hallucinating. Did she drink too much of the potion? The fairy suggested that they start over. She thanked Misa for helping Rent awaken, and she also thanked her for never returning his magic power. The fairy sincerely wanted to repay him for all the evil that Misa and her friends did to him. But there are other ways to awaken the gift in his case. When a certain amount of magic is returned, if the squad had returned the magic from the very beginning, Rent could have awakened. Misa asked again. If they had returned it? Mapi said, exactly. Having received such a person, they would have turned into an A-rank squad long ago. But in reality, this did not happen because they are very bad people. Misa caught Mapi and ordered her to shut up. She threw her to the ground, called her names, and stepped on her. Misa screamed that Rent was an even bigger bastard. It was all his fault. Mapi lay on the ground, battered. Misa stood over her and looked at her carefully. Mapi opened her eyes and asked if she had let off steam. There was nothing she could do. She couldn't escape the hellish payout. The moon shone on the sleeping city. Morning had come. Lindo and Suzu were walking through the city. They noticed a crowd of onlookers. Lindo asked what was going on. Someone asked if she was dead. Another person said she was still breathing. Lindo peered through the crowd. Someone said the girl had potion poisoning. They should call a doctor. The crowd said they had seen this girl before. Wasn't she a mage from the Boundless Sky Sword Squad? A woman tried to lift Misa. Another woman said that there were rumors that they were the fastest growing B-rank squad in history, but they scattered. Lindo told Suzu that a sword was a strange name. Who could resist the sky anyway? Rent told Mapi that the sky was clear today. Rinka ran up and apologized for the wait. She suggested heading to the 5th floor of the dungeon. Rent declined the offer. He asked why they didn't look for work in the guild. They do errands. He wants the party to have a good reputation, and then they might have a chance to meet the holders of the other sins. Mapi asked what they would do when they met them. Rent said he wanted to save them from the curse of the gifts. Maybe that was his mission, since he had that power. Mapi whispered in Rink's ear. See? She told her that. Rent is so kind, like a child. The protagonist asked the fairy about what she had just called him. Mapi replied that it was a kind of compliment. Rinka said that even if they ever met, they would have to fight them. Ren thought about it and said that she was right. Rinka said that she would protect him like always. MC asked her if they had decided yet. Rinka agreed. The protagonist said that he would immediately start looking for applications in the guild. A female silhouette was walking along a country road. The woman hid her body under a cloak. She noticed an ad on a pole and the word magic written on it. She came closer and read, "The nearest and most useful resources for those who want to get magical power. 5,000 units per person. Meeting in the village of Wimard." The face in the picture is looking for a place to live and work. The woman rushed to tear off this ad. She thought that she could get magical power. Her dream could come true. The sacred sacrament of coming of age was taking place in the temple. The priest asked to pray to the god of creation. Two men were worried about what was written there. Vanger received the parchment. The man was sure that there was a special gift there. Suddenly the priest flew to the side from the blow. Someone asked to repeat the ritual, and shouted that this was some kind of mistake. The priest said that he could not help, but such was the will of God. The man was indignant. How so? It was his child. On his parchment, it was written, Vanger, age 15, gender male, magic power, 10 out of 10. The guy thought, has God abandoned him? Time passed. The entrance to the great labyrinth of Melba. The guys asked the girl what she was doing. The girl answered that she was trying to get into the labyrinth. The guys said that she should go to the guild and apply. She answered that she could not do that because she did not have a gift. The guys laughed. She really did not have a gift? One of the guys pushed her away and rudely told her to leave. This is where the adventures come into play. Losers are better off staying at home. Another guy called her useless. Such mediocrities should not come here at all. In the guild, Rent read an ad that a guard was needed for a caravan. Rinka said that there was an ad about a lost dog. She didn't know what to choose. The protagonist was looking for dragon extermination. He asked if there were any requests like that. Rinka replied that she didn't know. Two adventurers were dragged into the guild by the scruff of the neck, like kittens. The girl told the administrator that these guys had D-rank gifts, and she beat them. This proves her strength. She asked if she could become an adventurer. The administrator wasn't surprised by this girl. She said that if she didn't have a gift, she couldn't register. The girl replied that because of this, she couldn't get into the dungeon. The administrator replied that she understood everything, but these were the rules. The girl sighed and said, "I see." She proudly said that she would prove her strength again. The administrator laughed and asked if the girl had listened to her. "It's not about who is stronger or weaker." Rent thought about it. "No gift?" The girl turned around and asked the first adventurer what rank he was. The young boy was scared and said that he was a novice swordsman of rank F. She turned to the protagonist. "What is his gift?" Rent asked, "Why?" The girl remained silent. She asked the protagonist again, "What is his gift?" Rent was surprised. She asked, "Higher than D or stronger? If stronger, then she will fight him." She looked at him and waited for an answer. Rinka appeared between them and pushed the girl away. Rinka asked what the girl wanted from Rent. MC tried to intervene between them. Rinka held out her parchment and said that she was SSS rank. The girl said that she had never heard of such a thing. Rinka replied that it was higher than S rank. The girl was surprised. Higher than S? She said that this was the first time she heard of such a thing. Rinka said that it was higher than A rank. The girl tried to remember the rank table. She began to pull out her weapon and said, looking at Rinka, "This is the highest one." The girl wanted to strike at Rinka, but she managed to jump away. The girl said that if she defeated her, she would be able to prove that she was the strongest. The receptionist shouted at the girl not to cause trouble. Otherwise, she would never be allowed in here again. Rent apologized and asked the receptionist who the girl was. The receptionist replied that her name was Shilu. She had recently arrived in the city. The protagonist asked what the girl said about not having a gift. The receptionist replied that she did. She had not received it at the coming-of-age ceremony. The meteor shower squad approached and saw a crowd of onlookers. Roger asked what was going on there. A fight? He noticed that one of the rivals was Rent's friend. The two girls were fighting. Rinka said that she had a feeling that they would have to fight whether she wanted to or not. She decided that if she used her ability, it would only take a second. But she couldn't use it against a person. The girl wanted to hit Rinka, but she dodged and the blow hit a brick wall. Rinka didn't understand where such strength came from. An earthen rampart, and the next blow to the wall of stones. Rent used physical enhancement. He pulled out his dagger and wanted to strike, but the girl did a somersault and ended up in another place. Rinka was hiding behind a wall of stones and calling for help from the protagonist. Rent said that his gift was infinite storage and he was also SSS rank. So if she wanted to prove her strength, she would have to go up against both of them. The girl replied, "Okay, when she wins, she will become an SSS rank adventurer." The girl ran up to strike. It was clear to her that this guy with shaggy hair was a mage, which meant she had to use physical force. Rent used intimidation. Level 1 energy boost. Purchase price is 5,000 units. The girl froze as if enchanted. Rent used earthen rampart again. It surrounded the girl from all sides. Then he used water flow, and a huge column of water lifted the girl high up. The onlookers raised their heads. The girl fell to the ground with all her might. Rent and Rinka approached her exhausted body. The girl muttered that she was hungry. The friends looked at each other and thought. A little later in the tavern, Rent read her parchment. He learned that the girl's name was Shilu, and she really did not have a gift, and she was 17 years old. Roger asked how this was possible. Rent said that he thought that everyone received a gift at the coming-of-age ceremony. Roger said that some people do not get it. It is very rare. Shilu said that she was always on the sidelines. Everyone laughed at her because she did not have a gift, so she trained to be bigger and stronger than everyone else. In the end, she beat the crap out of those who laughed at her. Rent said that he could not believe that she did not have a gift. If he were in the same situation, he would have given up a long time ago too. He said that Shilu was amazing. She screamed that she was not at all, because she lost to a shaggy guy. Rent asked, "A shaggy guy? That's rude." Shilu asked what kind of gift the protagonist had. She had never heard of such a thing. She wanted to know. Rinka called out to Shilu and told her not to irritate Rent too much. Shilu didn't understand why Rinka was upset. If she had hit her then, she would have won. Rinka was surprised. She said that she would settle everything in private later. Shilu answered, with pleasure. The protagonist tried to separate them. Nymeria asked what was going on with Rinka. Rent answered that she was like this after yesterday. Yesterday he met Miss and got into her troubles. Roger clarified that she was that strange girl. The protagonist said that Rinka felt guilty about it, that's why she was taking care of him. Roger said that he didn't think that was the only thing. Rinka told Shilu not to call Rent shaggy. Shilu answered that she thought it was appropriate. The friends sat at the table in a large group and talked. Shilu called Rinka an SSS adventurer, and Rinka said that some people have no gift at all. Roger said that they are both worthy of each other. At the next table, Jin and Fuga were sitting. Jin said that interesting people gather around the boy. Fuga said that he would say that the protagonist is a person with an inquisitive character. Jin answered that it is true. Jin noticed the endless storage of magic. He turned to Kalmet. She asked what? Jin asked what she would do if she could use as much magic as she wanted. Comet answered that she would take over the world. Fuga said that there was no need to give such a crazy answer. Jin said that it was not that. He thought that Renth would attract unwanted attention in the future. The guild administrator apologized to everyone for interrupting the meal. She said that they had just received a request from another guild branch to exterminate a demon. Roger asked, "Extermination?" Roger apologized and said that they wanted to focus on the dungeon for now. The receptionist answered, "I see." Rent asked if they could take on this request. Roger said that was fine. Nymeria asked if they weren't in the middle of a dungeon crawl. Rent answered that they were actually taking a break for now. He told his friends everything in detail. Roger asked, "Sigma of the 7 deadly sins?" Rent answered that he had greed and Rink had wrath. They needed to meet the bearers of the other gifts, the ones that embody the other 5 sins. They wanted their name to be known. Shilu said that the protagonist had a strange ability. Comet was surprised. She said that if this was a special power, then she had it too. Roger asked the receptionist, "Can they leave this job to Rent and Rink?" The receptionist answered, "I guess. It's not up to her to decide." Roger said he'd write a cover letter, okay? The receptionist answered that she'd discuss it with her superiors. Roger smiled and said that it might not end with just killing demons, but it would be a good experience. He asked Rent to try hard. The protagonist said, "Thank you very much." The next day, friends came to see Rink and Rent off. Jin wished MC good luck and wished him to take care of himself. Nymeria said that they would drink together again when he returned. Roger stood silently to the side. Fuga asked him if he was confident in his actions. Comet said that this request was originally addressed specifically to their squad. Nymeria pressed the protagonist and said that this was not an easy matter. Roger asked Fuga if he was too worried about them. Roger said loudly that he wanted to see those who rose from the very bottom. Rent and Rink looked out of the carriage and smiled at these words. Roger chuckled and said, "The 7 deadly sins." On the way to the mission, there were 4 people riding in the carriage. Rent, Rinka, and 2 girls from the customer. One of them said that she would tell the details of the case. The other girl added that they are described in this letter. The customer is Count Willard, who rules the neighboring fiefdom. He asked to kill demons in the Shadowvale forest and explore the surrounding area. There is a small village near the forest. It can be used as a base of operations. The protagonist answered, "I see." One of the girls asked who was riding on the roof of the cart. He and Rinka decided to check it out. Rent climbed out of the window of the cart and saw Sheila on the roof. She greeted the shaggy guy. Rent asked her, had she been here all this time? Sheila answered, "Of course. After all, they haven't finished the argument. She won't leave until she wins." Rent replied that he and Rinka had already won. The driver shouted that there were monsters ahead. There were 2 huge monsters standing in the middle of the road. One of them immediately got hit in the face with a club, and then another one got it. Shilu stood proudly over the defeated monsters. She asked if she wasn't strong. The driver was surprised by the speed of work. Rent said that he didn't know what was going on, but Shilu could be useful to them. Somewhere in the village, the girls said that they had arrived just in time. 2 people approached the carriage, a man and a woman. The woman said, "Welcome, meteor shower." Rent greeted them back. The man asked, "Is this the meteor shower?" The woman answered, "I don't think so." The protagonist explained that they were the Double Deviation Squad. The woman thought about it. MC said that they were here on behalf of the meteor shower. He handed over the recommendation letter from Master Roger. The woman took the letter and read it. She said that everything was clear to her and that they were accepting the squad. She greeted him again and introduced herself as Ravut. She was from the defense squad. The man also introduced himself as Bosco. He was the headman of this village. Rent and Rinka also introduced themselves. Ravut looked at Sheila and asked who it was. The protagonist replied that it was Sheila, their escort. Sheila shouted, "Monsters come out." Ravut was surprised. Everyone went into the house, where a table was set for guests. Ravut thanked the party for coming a long way and said that the dishes on the table were prepared from products grown here. Sheila pounced on the food and said that it was delicious. Rinka tried the food and also said that it was very tasty. Rent apologized for disturbing. He asked the village chief about the monsters in the forest. Bosco said that the Shadowvale forest was originally a very ordinary forest, but recently, evil demons settled in the forest. Crops and villagers are under attack. Bosco said, "Why don't you leave such a dangerous village?" This is the question that was written on the protagonist's face. Rent replied that he did not think anything like that. Another man in the village said that they founded this village. They have worked hard for many years cultivating the land, and now they can finally reap the fruits of their labor. How could they give it all up? The villagers said that none of them had gifts. The villager said that the world was too cruel for such vulnerable people to live in it. Another villager added that that was why they had no choice but to live among their own kind. Rent asked if they had any gifts at all. The villager said yes. Rinka was surprised, but surely it was not uncommon for people to have no gifts. The man said that it was uncommon. Normal people did not even know that they existed. Bosco said that they should not be rude to their protectors. Rent thought that the villagers had been so hospitable, but the atmosphere had become tense. So Rent smiled and said that the girl who came with them also has no gift. He asked Rink where Shilu was. Rinka answered that she was just here. Rent suggested that maybe she went to the toilet? Somewhere in the night forest. Shilu thought that after dinner she felt better and she would deal with the monsters herself. The protagonist was indignant. Did she really go to the forest alone? Ravut asked. At such a time, she asked Rent why he does not control his comrades. Rinka clarified that Shilu is not with them. Rent ran out of the house saying that he will go and get her. Ravut asked, did Rent really go to the forest too? Rinka apologized and said that Rent is exactly like that. She stopped the protagonist and said that she will also go with him. Ravut thought about it and put on her helmet. She said that the squad is crazy if they go to the forest on the first day. So many problems. Rent found traces of Sheila's struggle in the forest. He was sure that she would go into the forest. Ravut asked if he knew where Sheila was. The protagonist answered yes. If you use the presence detector, you can get a general idea of her location. He used the detector and said that she was right ahead. Quite alive. He used the detector again and found many creatures around. Ravut asked him what was going on. Suddenly, there was a noise from above, and Rinka noticed a monster in the form of a worm. She asked what it was. Rent answered that it was a devilfish, but he had never seen such a big one. The protagonist used a fireball multiplied by 5, but it did not help. Rinka took out her sword and cut the monster in half, but it was still moving. Rent picked up the vault and said that everything was fine now. He suggested moving on. He was surprised that his magic did not work. Those are demons. Moppy assumed that it was because of magic resistance. First level magic does not work on demons. This is the order. If the damage is 0, no matter how many times it hits, it is still 0. Rent said that this means the power of the demons in this forest is much higher than all the other monsters he fought. Rinka told Rent that she will lead the way forward. After all, she is the one who bears the brunt of the damage. The protagonist thought about it. Rinka continued that he should not bear everything on himself. MC apologized to Rinka and offered to return Sheila safe and sound together. Various monsters, worms and centipedes crawled out of the darkness. Rinka confidently chopped them with her sword. Rent was sure that Sheila must be somewhere ahead. Somewhere in the depths of the forest, they found Sheila lying unconscious. Rinka asked if she was okay. Rent brought the vault and said that he would heal her now. Ravut saw monsters nearby. She grabbed her spear and went on the attack. Ravut bravely fought off the monsters' attacks. Rent tried to help her and used an earthen rampart. They loaded Sheila onto the protagonist's shoulders and Ravut commanded that they were going back. Ravut and Rinka walked ahead with weapons and Rent carried Sheila on his back. The night monsters watched them from the darkness. The monsters kept showing up to the heroes. In the morning in the village, Sheila woke up in bed. Rinka was very happy about this. She asked how Sheila was feeling. She screamed where the monsters were. Rinka said that she should rest. Sheila asked about them saving her. Rinka answered yes. It was she, Rent and Ravut. They were looking for her in the forest. Rinka said that Sheila should not leave like that again. The villagers asked Rent what happened in the night forest. The protagonist answered that when he heard their story, he thought that the demons had created a colony in the forest, and destroying it would solve all the problems. But in the end, it wasn't that simple. He used his detection of the presence of strangers, and although this skill can't cover a large area, there were a lot of aggressive demons in this part of the forest. Rent sat under a tree and looked at his parchment. It said 3rd level fire magnesium firestorm, cost 100,000 units. The protagonist said that he accumulated magic in the shortest possible time, but already spent it. Moppy said that strong magic is expensive. To become stronger, you need to accumulate even more. She calculated that the current income is natural replenishment and collection of Rink's magic, plus forced collection from 3 former friends. To grow more effectively and buy strong magic, you need to collect more debtors. Rent asked again, more debtors? Moppy said that it would be easy because his storage has developed. The protagonist said that Misa, Guy, and L convert the skills of 3 debtors into magic power, distribute them to pay off the debt. The collected surplus will be used to pay off the principal. The forced collection for today is over. Rinka said, I understand. Rent said that this is how it ended in the end. As expected, they were unable to pay everything on time. Rent heard a voice that the skill growth requirements were met. The gift magic skill grew from level 2 to level 3. Moppy congratulated Mr. Rent. The protagonist was surprised. What was going on? The fairy replied that there was no need to worry. Since the gift level grew, he can now lend magic power to people outside his party. Rent clarified what Moppy wanted to say. The fairy replied, that's right, he can lend magic power to anyone in this world. Rent was happy that he could lend magic. He told the villagers that his gift was an endless storage of magic. The villagers were very surprised. Shilu asked if she could lend magic. Moppi answered, "Of course. It doesn't matter whether a person has a gift or not, anyone can get magic power." The fairy showed herself to the villagers and introduced herself as the fairy of the protagonist's gift, and her name is Moppi. She said that magic power is useful for everyone. She asked the villagers if they felt sluggish, empty, and sad. It was all because they unknowingly depleted their magic power every day, and if they borrowed it, they would be full of energy to do more important things. She looked at Sheila and offered to lend her status parchment. She brought it to the storage, and the pig swallowed the parchment. Everyone was very surprised. The storage grunted and spat out the parchment. Moppi said that everything was ready. Sheila asked what kind of colored frame was that. Moppi answered that the color shows the credit rank. Rinka said that she did not have one. Moppi replied that since she was a member of the party, her loan was unchangeable. Moppi offered to lend Shilu 100 units as a trial. Shilu was surprised. Moppi said that if Shilu repaid the debt and interest, then it would be possible to lend more magic. Shilu did not wait for an answer and ran off saying that she would now take revenge on all the demons. Rinka shouted that it was dangerous to go into the forest alone. Rent told Ravut that they were going to defeat the demons and use the forest, but they were afraid that they could not cope alone. He asked for her support. Ravut replied, "No problem." She would pass the information on to the guild. Rent handed over the storage and said that there was something else. He asked for permission to put up announcements. Ravut asked again, "Put up announcements?" These announcements were posted in the guild, on the city streets, and on the fences. Announcement: the nearest and useful resources for those who want to get magic power, 5,000 units per person. You are expected in the village of Weimard. The man in the picture is looking for a place to live and work. Passers-by looked at this ad and wondered, magic power? They said that someone was giving out magic power, but didn't it seem suspicious? A girl in the crowd thought about it. Time passed. Soldiers were discussing something somewhere. Bosco said that adventurers seemed to have already arrived. Shiru replied that there were fewer of them than she thought. Rinka asked that the advertisement didn't work very well. The protagonist said, "Welcome to the village." He introduced himself that his name was Rent. He was the owner of that very magic storage. One of the soldiers asked, "Who is this shorty?" Another asked, were they sure they had arrived at the right address? Rent suggested that they come in order of the queue. The soldiers did not believe that he was a magician loan shark. One girl said that she had recently become an adventurer, and now she wants to use magic power to become stronger. Rent replied, "I understand." He suggested that they achieve this goal together. Rent suggested starting with a silver rank. The girl said she would lend him as much as she could. The protagonist invited the next one. The next guy who came in was an unshaven guy and said he wanted to borrow all the magic he had. Rent asked how he would pay it back. The guy said he didn't care. He would definitely pay the protagonist back someday. Rent asked the guy if he had heard of the Sky Sword Squad. The guy was surprised. MC said they were very bad debtors. They tried not to pay, so he had to force them. He confiscated their skills, gifts, everything to cover the debt. Moppi said that if the guy had a magical debt, his life would be hell. The next one who came in was a cute girl in a hat with one button. She apologized and asked if she was in the right place. Rent said they were happy to see everyone. He asked if she wanted to borrow magic. The girl agreed. He said that her gift was the creation of plant seeds, so she thought that if she borrowed magic, she would be able to advance in her research. But if it was impossible, she would not be offended. Rent said that he did not mind at all. The girl was very happy and began to thank. She said that she was currently researching viburnum, and if she could create a dream viburnum, stress-resistant to cold and dryness, which would bear fruit in any conditions, then her dream would come true. The protagonist said that he understood her. One of the soldiers said that although he agreed to it, he had doubts. The second answered, "Does it really work?" They asked Ravut if there were any orders. They wanted to test the borrowed power right now. Ravut said that in that case there was a small test in the forest. They went into the forest. One of the soldiers easily killed one monster. Another soldier killed another. They were happy with their power. No matter how much they use it, the magic never ends. A new monster, one hit, and it's gone. But not everyone succeeded. The protagonist asked one adventurer if he was okay. The guy said yes. One of the soldiers asked what kind of forest this was. There were just hordes of demons here. Rent replied that the creature's power was probably proportional to the 6th floor of the Great Melba Labyrinth. The soldiers asked again, the 6th B-rank power? Ravut said it would get dark soon. That's enough for today. She ordered everyone to return to the village. At night, in the village, the protagonist thought about it, asked the villagers about abandoning the village. The village chief said he had discussed it with other villagers. It was only now that he realized that the forest was dangerous. Rent said that this village they had all put so much effort into. The village chief said it was okay. They would start over somewhere else. He didn't want to endanger anyone. The girl sat and looked at the boxes of vegetables. She said it was a terrible loss. It took years to grow so much food. It took a long time to cultivate the soil. It would be a shame to throw away such goodness. She asked the villagers if they would agree to sell this food to her. At least a little. Rent answered decisively that everything would be fine. He understood the danger. Otherwise, he would not have become an adventurer. Besides, he could not just give up. If they continued to explore the forest, they would find out why these monsters appeared here. Someone was quietly sneaking around outside. Rinka heard something. Sheila asked why Rinka was shuddering. Rinka answered that nothing. A woman in a cloak came through the door. She asked the protagonist if he could lend her some of his magic power. She was holding a notice in her hands.